There was a huge fire at Company X, where my husband worked. When I heard the news, I felt like someone had hit me in the head with a hammer. I was so worried about him. I immediately called my husband, hoping he was okay and had gotten out of the fire. The phone rang, and then I heard his voice on the other end. "Hello? Max, where are you? Are you safe?" I asked, relieved to hear from him. My voice got louder because I was so happy to reach him. Max sounded annoyed and said, "Why are you shouting? I'm at work. Don't call me when I'm working." He hung up the phone right after that. I felt a little better knowing he wasn't caught in the fire, but his response seemed strange. "My name is Mona, and I'm 32 years old. I work as a nurse, and work has always been a big part of my life. I married Max 3 years ago when I was 29. We met through a friend and hit it off right away. We live in his company housing and are enjoying our life together. We've been married for 3 years, but don't have kids yet. I still believe we can have a happy family." Max is a good man, though sometimes he can be a bit self-centered. He shows me love, and I feel safe with him. Lately, though, he's been working a lot, even on his days off. I think he's just tired, so he doesn't pay much attention to me. After dinner, he sits on the couch, staring at his phone with the TV on but not really watching it. When I try to talk to him, he just gives short answers like yeah or oh. At first, I thought maybe I had said something wrong, but I decided he was just exhausted from his busy work, so I made sure to prepare healthy meals for him every day. Then, something unusual happened. A coworker asked me to switch my shift from night to day, so I had to tell Max that I would be working during the day. I planned to let him know, but I got busy and ended up sending him an email that day. I told him about the shift change and that I would make dinner and wait for him. But I didn't get a reply. He used to reply quickly, even when I was at work, sometimes with emojis. This time, he just read the message but didn't respond. I started to wonder if he was just busy or if this was normal after being married for 3 years. Feeling a bit sad, I went to the store after work and bought ingredients to cook a nice dinner for him. Since it was so cold, I decided to make a one-pot dish. I prepped everything and waited for him to come home so I could start cooking. He usually gets home by 7 p.m., but by 9 p.m., he still hadn't come back. When he finally walked in, I said, "Welcome back. You're late. Did you work overtime?" He answered, "Yeah, I did, but did you have to switch to the day shift suddenly?" I said, "Yeah, a coworker had an emergency, so I couldn't tell you sooner, but it's a bit frustrating that you didn't know until the same day. I might have made other plans, like going out for a drink." Max apologized. "You're right, sorry." Then I turned on the stove and started cooking. "Oh, you haven't eaten yet?" my husband asked when he saw me sitting at the table. "No, I thought I'd wait for you," I replied. "Well, thanks, but next time, you don't have to wait for me," he said. His words made me feel a little sad. I started to wait for the hot pot to boil. Once it was simmering, I served him a portion, then served myself. I was really hungry after waiting so long. As I ate, I noticed that my husband wasn't eating much. "What's wrong? You don't seem to be eating much," I asked. He looked a little confused and replied, "Oh, yeah, actually, I worked late, and a junior colleague bought me a rice bowl, so I'm not really hungry." I was frustrated and said, "Well, you should have told me earlier, before I made the hot pot." He seemed to notice that I was upset and said, "Okay, I'll put my portion in the fridge. I'll eat it tomorrow morning." He was trying to make me feel better. Then, he lay down on the couch, but a few minutes later, he suddenly said, "I'm going for a walk." "That's unusual," I said, surprised. "I haven't been getting enough exercise lately, and I've been working late. I need a change of pace," he explained. I felt a bit empty eating alone at the table, so I decided to put my portion in the fridge too. I felt like I'd eaten too much, and since my husband and I hadn't spent much time together lately, I thought I'd join him on the walk. But when I asked him to walk with me, he refused. He said it wouldn't be good for me to walk right after eating, and that he wanted to go for a long walk alone. He left to walk by himself. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off, so I decided to secretly follow him. As soon as I did, I saw my husband walking briskly, clearly not tired from his walk. He stopped in front of a park that was a bit far from the house and started looking around. It seemed like he was talking to someone on his phone. Then, a car pulled up. My husband went up to the car and spoke to the person in the driver's seat. It was dark, but when I got closer, I saw a woman sitting there. She had long, curly hair and glossy lipstick. I was in shock as I watched my husband get into the car with her. They drove away together. I couldn't believe it. He was having an affair. I stood there, shocked, for a while. Then my husband sent me a text message saying he had run into someone he knew and would be home a little late. Someone he knew, out of nowhere, I thought. I didn't believe him at all. He had told me he wasn't hungry because he'd already eaten, but it was past 2 a.m. When he finally came home. He didn't even notice I was awake. He seemed a bit drunk and went straight to the kitchen to drink some water. From then on, he kept working overtime whenever I was on the day shift. We already had trouble matching our days off, but now it was even harder. Yesterday, he worked late, and today, he had to work on his day off, but I wondered if it was really work. Was he meeting the woman I saw that night? I couldn't stop thinking about it. I searched online for detective agencies and ended up hiring one to look into it. I felt guilty for spying on him, but if nothing was going on, I would be able to trust him again, so I decided to go ahead with the investigation. The waiting was awful. My husband was as quiet as ever, and every time I saw his face, I thought about the woman. I wanted to know the truth as soon as possible. Then something unbelievable happened. It was Saturday, and I was working my usual day shift. My husband was also working on his day off. I focused on my work, trying not to think about anything else. Suddenly, I heard fire truck sirens getting louder and closer. It wasn't just one truck, but several. There must have been a big fire nearby. I felt uneasy. Then, two of my coworkers came back from a hospital room with serious expressions. They mentioned the fire. Wait, the fire? I asked. Yes, it was a big fire at Company X, they said. My heart dropped. That was where my husband worked. I rushed to explain what I had heard, then called my husband to make sure he was safe. Please be safe, I thought to myself as I dialed his number. Even though we hadn't been talking much lately, I always saw him off when he left for work. I hoped he had gotten out of the fire. The phone rang, and to my relief, I heard his voice. Hello? Max, where are you? Are you safe? I asked, my voice louder from relief. He sounded annoyed and said, What's wrong with you? You're yelling. I'm at work. Don't call me while I'm working. And the call ended suddenly. At least he wasn't caught in the fire, but his response was strange. There was a fire, and fire trucks were there. He couldn't possibly still be at work. Maybe he wasn't even at work. And why was he being so cold to me when I was worried about him? I became angrier. Maybe I had been seeing him off just so he could meet another woman since we got married. I made a decision. I would leave. I started packing my things as soon as I got home. Then I checked the mailbox and saw the results from the detective agency. I decided to leave with those results in hand. My parents helped me pack, and the movers arrived soon after. My things were taken out of the house right away. My husband didn't know I knew the truth. He didn't try to contact me that night, and I figured he was staying with his lover. I packed up many of my belongings from before our marriage. The room was almost empty, looking so lonely. As I stared at it, I realized I had no attachment to the life we had in this house. For now, I moved my things to my parents' house and started looking for a new place to live alone. The next day, my husband finally called. Hey, what's going on? Most of your stuff is gone, he said. Of course I moved out, I answered. What were you thinking? When are you coming back? What about my food? What about the house chores? I was shocked. Is that all you care about? As I talked to him, I remembered the fire at his company. He wasn't even working, he was with his affair partner. That thought made me even angrier. Why don't you get another woman to do that, huh? I asked him. What are you talking about? He replied. You were with a woman named Linda today, weren't you? Huh? What are you talking about? I was working at the office. At the office? How long did you work today? It was a busy day, even though it was my day off. I worked late. That's why I was surprised you moved out. Stop lying already. Huh? You lied about going to work, right? I wasn't lying, I was working. How could you be working all day when there was a fire at your office? Huh? When I called you, I heard fire trucks heading to your company because of a fire there. That's why I called, to check if you were okay. You told me not to call you at work, but you spoke like nothing happened. Well, and I have proof of your affair from a detective agency. You can't hide from this. I'll be handling everything through my lawyer. I'll make sure to get alimony. Oh no. He begged for my forgiveness, apologizing over and over, but I didn't care anymore. I had no feelings left for him. I'm sorry, but it's over. I'm hanging up now. Wait. I went to my lawyer and filed for a divorce and alimony. The divorce went through, and my husband couldn't avoid the consequences with all the evidence. He and his affair partner paid me a fair amount of alimony. It turned out his lover was a junior colleague at his company. The news of their affair spread quickly, especially since it happened during the fire. It caused a lot of anger from their coworkers. Now, both my husband and his lover are getting cold stares from everyone, and I think they deserve it. Meanwhile, I moved into a new apartment and am living a peaceful life on my own. As a nurse with a stable job, I'm not in a rush to start another relationship. I'm enjoying my own time and looking forward to meeting someone who's sincere when the time is right. She discovered her husband's affair because of the fire at his company, but he shouldn't have cheated in the first place. She would have found out eventually. He deserves everything that happened. Enjoy your life, Mona, and stay strong as you start fresh.
The memorial garden had become my sanctuary over the past 7 years. Every Saturday morning, I'd tend to the roses Evie loved so much, their pink blooms a reminder of her favorite color. The routine helped, even if the pain never really went away. I was pruning the last bush when movement at the garden gate caught my eye. A young woman, stood there, her hand resting on the iron latch. Something about her posture made my scissors slip, nicking my thumb. "Mom," the voice hit me like a physical blow. I knew that voice, even though it had deepened with age. My legs gave out, and I sank to my knees in the damp soil. "This isn't possible," I whispered, but she was already rushing toward me, her arms wrapping around my shoulders. She smelled of unfamiliar shampoo and something else. Fear, maybe. "I'm sorry," she kept saying, over and over. "I'm so sorry, Mom." I pulled back, my hands shaking as I touched her face. Evie's face, but older. My 11-year-old daughter, now a teenager. The scar above her right eyebrow that she'd gotten falling off her bike. The slight dimple in her left cheek. Details no stranger could know or fake.
"How?"
The word came out raw. "We buried you. There was a funeral. Your father." Dad lied. Her voice hardened on the word. "He arranged everything. The car accident, the closed casket, all of it." The world tilted sideways. I gripped her shoulders, afraid she might disappear if I let go. "Where have you been?" "Switzerland, mostly. At a boarding school." She glanced over her shoulder at the house. "Is he here?"
"No."
"Business trip to Chicago." The words tasted bitter now. How many of those trips had been lies? Good. Evie helped me to my feet. "We don't have much time. I needed you to know the truth, but I can't stay long. He doesn't know I'm here." "You're not leaving." The words came out fierce, maternal. "You're my daughter." "Mom, please. It's complicated. There are things you don't know about Dad, about why he did this." I thought about the past 7 years. The grief counseling, the support groups, Jasper holding me through countless nights of tears, all while knowing our daughter was alive. "Then tell me," I said, leading her toward the house. "Tell me everything." She hesitated at the back door. "He'll know I was here." "Let him." Something cold and sharp was crystallizing in my chest. "You're home now. That's all that matters." "You don't understand. Dad, She stopped, her eyes fixing on something behind me. I turned to see Jasper's car pulling into the driveway, 2 days early from his supposed business trip. Evie's hand tightened on mine. "He's with her," she whispered. Through the windshield, I could see a woman in the passenger seat, elegant, younger than me, her hand resting casually on my husband's arm. "Go upstairs," I told Evie. "Use the back stairs. Your old room is exactly as you left it." She squeezed my hand once more before slipping away. I watched her disappear up the stairs, then turned back to the window. Jasper was helping the woman out of the car, his hand lingering at her waist. 7 years of grief crashed against this new reality, transforming into something darker. My daughter was alive. My husband was a liar. And now I knew exactly what I had to do. I watched Jasper guide his companion through our front door, my hand steady as I filled the kettle. Years of muscle memory took over while my mind raced. The woman's perfume, something expensive and floral, drifted through the kitchen before they did. Lila. Jasper's voice carried that familiar warmth, the same tone he'd used to comfort me through countless nights of grieving. I thought you'd be at your garden club today. I turned, forcing a smile. The meeting was canceled. My eyes shifted to the woman beside him. She wore my daughter's death like jewelry, a designer bag bought with insurance money. Expensive highlights probably paid for with grief-fueled promotions. This is Bianca, Jasper said, his hand hovering at her lower back. She's a potential investor for the new development project. Bianca extended her hand. Jasper's told me so much about you. I wondered if he'd told her how he'd held me through the funeral of our very much alive daughter. Has he? The kettle whistled, saving me from saying more. I thought we could discuss the project over lunch, Jasper said, loosening his tie. Bianca has some fascinating ideas about. A floorboard creaked upstairs. Jasper's head snapped toward the sound, a flash of something, fear, crossing his face. Probably just the house settling, I said quickly. It's been doing that lately. Would anyone like tea? Actually, Bianca glanced at her watch. I should get going. We can reschedule the discussion. Jasper's jaw tightened. I'll walk you out. I watched through the window as they spoke by her car, their bodies angled too closely for mere business associates. When Jasper returned, his smile had hardened. Want to tell me what that was about? He asked, closing the door behind him. What was about? The attitude. The cold shoulder to Bianca. He moved to the liquor cabinet, pouring himself a scotch. At 2 p.m. I thought you were in Chicago until Thursday. Plans changed. He took a long sip. You're avoiding the question. And you're avoiding mine. I stepped closer, studying his face, the face I'd trusted for 20 years. How long have you been sleeping with her? The glass froze halfway to his lips. That's ridiculous. She's a business associate. Don't. My voice cracked. Don't lie to me. Not after. I caught myself, remembering Evie upstairs. After what? His eyes narrowed. What's really going on, Lila? Another creak from upstairs. Jasper set his glass down, moving toward the stairs. I grabbed his arm. We need to talk about the memorial garden, I said quickly. I'm thinking of changing it. Moving on. He stilled. You've never wanted to change it before. Maybe it's time. I met his gaze. Maybe it's time for a lot of things to change. Something shifted in his expression, a calculation, a reassessment. He'd always been good at reading people, at manipulating situations to his advantage. I could almost see him adjusting his strategy. Of course, he said softly, taking my hand. Whatever you need. You know I've only ever wanted what's best for you. For us. I fought the urge to pull away, to scream the truth in his face. Instead, I squeezed his hand and smiled. I know. I've always known that. He kissed my forehead, and I wondered how many times he'd used tenderness as a weapon. I have some calls to make. We'll talk more at dinner? I nodded, watching him disappear into his home office. Only then did I allow my hands to shake, pressing them flat against the kitchen counter. Upstairs, my daughter was alive. Downstairs, my husband was a stranger. And somewhere between these two truths, I had to find a way to protect one while destroying the other. Following Jasper had become disturbingly easy. After 20 years of marriage, I knew his patterns, his habits, the little lies he told without thinking. Today's was about a lunch meeting downtown. I watched from my car as he pulled into the parking lot of the Riverside Hotel, not a restaurant in sight. My phone buzzed. A text from Evie. Be careful. He checks everything. I'd left her at home with strict instructions to stay in the guest room, away from windows. The past 3 days of secret conversations and hushed planning had aged me a decade, but they'd also hardened my resolve. Jasper emerged from the hotel 40 minutes later, Bianca on his arm. They paused by her car, and I snapped several photos with my phone, my hands steady despite the rage building in my chest. Then something unexpected happened. They argued. Bianca gestured frantically while Jasper grabbed her arm, his face twisted in an expression I'd never seen before. I slipped out of my car, moving closer under the pretense of checking my phone. Their voices carried across the parking lot. You promised this would be over by now, Bianca hissed. The money is complicated, Jasper cut in. These things take time. The trust fund. The trust fund that supposedly died with your daughter? My breath caught. Evie's trust fund, the one her grandfather had set up, the one that would have matured on her 18th birthday, the one that disappeared after her death. Lower your voice, Jasper growled. Everything's under control. Like Switzerland was under control? Bianca yanked her arm free. She's not staying there forever, Jasper. What happens when? When what? They both turned. I stood there, phone visible in my hand. No point in hiding anymore. Bianca's face drained of color, but Jasper's smoothed into that familiar, reassuring smile. Lila, he said softly, this isn't what it looks like. Really? I held up my phone. Because it looks like you're discussing my daughter's trust fund with your mistress. Bianca's eyes darted between us. I should go. Stay. My voice was ice. I think we all need to have a conversation about Switzerland. She's delusional, Jasper said quickly to Bianca. Still grieving. You know how she gets about Evie. Funny you should mention Evie. I took a step closer. How is the boarding school? Expensive, I imagine. Especially with all those international fees. Jasper's mask slipped for just a moment, revealing something dark and desperate underneath. You need help, Lila. I'm calling Dr. Matthews. No more doctors, Jasper. No more grief counselors or support groups or pills to help me sleep. I turned to Bianca. Did he tell you how he held me through night after night of nightmares? How he wiped my tears while our daughter was alive and alone in another country? I didn't. Bianca started, but Jasper cut her off. That's enough. He reached for my arm, but I stepped back. The trust fund. I pressed. How much was it worth? Enough to start your development company. Enough to buy her silence. I nodded toward Bianca. You don't understand, he said, his voice dropping to that soothing tone he'd used so often during my grieving. Everything I did was for us, for our future. No. The word came out sharp enough to make them both flinch. Everything you did was for you. But that ends now. I turned to leave, but Jasper's next words froze me in place. If you think you can prove any of this, you're wrong. And if you try, you'll never see her again. I looked back at him, really looked at the man I'd loved for 2 decades. That sounds like a threat. It's a promise. His smile was gentle, reasonable, terrifying. Think carefully about your next move, Lila. Some games are too dangerous to play. I walked away, my heart pounding but my step steady. He was right about one thing. This was a dangerous game. But he'd forgotten who he was playing against. A mother who'd already lost her child once. I had nothing left to lose, and everything to reclaim. The safe in Jasper's office had always been there, innocuous behind his collection of legal texts. I'd never questioned it before. Every lawyer had confidential documents to protect. But now, watching Evie pick the lock with practiced hands, I wondered how many other things I'd chosen not to see. Dad always used the same combinations, she said, fingers moving with surprising precision. Birthdays, anniversaries. He's not as clever as he thinks. The safe clicked open, revealing stacks of papers and a USB drive. My hands trembled as I reached for them, but Evie caught my wrist. Wait. She pulled out her phone, photographing everything exactly as it was placed. He'll know if anything's disturbed. I nodded, pride and heartache warring in my chest. When had my daughter learned to be so careful? What else had she learned while I thought she was dead? The documents told a story in cold, legal language. Transfer of funds. Offshore accounts. A private school in Switzerland with tuition payments traced back to shell companies. And something else. Property deeds in Bianca's name, purchased with money that disappeared from Evie's trust fund. He's been planning this for years, I whispered. The front door slammed downstairs. Evie froze, her eyes wide with a fear I never wanted to see again. Quick, I breathed, helping her return everything exactly as we'd found it. The safe closed with a soft click just as footsteps approached the office. Hide, I mouthed, gesturing to the closet. She slipped inside as Jasper appeared in the doorway. "What are you doing in here?" His tone was light, but his eyes weren't. "Looking for aspirin." I forced a smile. "Headache." "In my office?" The bathroom was out. I moved toward the door, but he didn't step aside. "Funny thing happened today," he said, loosening his tie. "Bianca called.
She's worried about you."
Says you've been asking questions." "Have I?" "About Switzerland." He stepped closer.
About money.
"About things that don't concern you." "Our daughter doesn't concern me?" His hand shot out, gripping my arm. "Our daughter is dead, Lila. You need to accept that." "Like you did." I yanked free. "While you were building your empire with her trust fund?" Something dangerous flickered in his eyes. "You don't want to do this." "Do what?" "Ask why my husband stole our daughter's inheritance. Why he—" The slap caught me off guard, more shocking than painful. We stood frozen, both surprised by the violence of it. From the closet came the faintest gasp. Jasper's head snapped toward the sound. "What was that?" "Nothing." I stepped into his line of sight. "Just the house settling. It does that, remember?" He studied me for a long moment, then smiled. That same smile that had once made me feel safe, now twisted into something threatening. "You know what your problem is, Lila? You never learned when to let things go." He straightened his tie. "I have a meeting. We'll discuss this later." After he left, Evie emerged from the closet, tears streaming down her face. "I'm so sorry, Mom. This is all my fault."
No.
I pulled her close, feeling her shake. "None of this is your fault.
But we need to move faster now."
He knows something's wrong. What are we going to do?" I touched my cheek where he'd struck me, feeling a strange calm settle over me. "We're going to talk to Bianca." "But she's working with him." "Maybe." I thought about the argument I'd witnessed, the fear in Bianca's eyes. Or maybe she's just another piece in his game. Either way, she's the key to proving what he did. And if she won't help? I looked at my daughter. So grown up, so scarred by the man who should have protected her. "Then we'll find another way. He's not taking you from me again." The bruise forming on my cheek felt like a promise. Jasper had shown his true face today, and in doing so, he'd given me exactly what I needed, proof that he was capable of violence. Now I just had to make sure he never had the chance to use it again. Bianca's apartment was exactly what I expected: modern, expensive, cold. She opened the door with a glass of wine already in hand, unsurprised to see me. "I wondered when you'd show up." She stepped aside, revealing a view of the city through floor-to-ceiling windows. "He's not here." "I know." "Board meeting until 7. I entered, noting the packed suitcase by the door. "Going somewhere?" "Depends on how this conversation goes." She took a long sip. "You brought proof." I pulled out my phone, showing her the photos from Jasper's safe. Her hand trembled slightly as she swiped through them. "The property deeds," she said softly. "He promised those were mine. Like he promised to leave his grieving wife." The words came out sharper than intended. "You don't understand." She set down her wine. "I was supposed to be gone by now. New identity, new life. That was the deal." "What deal?" A key turned in the lock. We both froze as Jasper walked in, his expression shifting from surprise to rage in an instant. "Well," he said, closing the door behind him. "Isn't this cozy?" The meeting, Bianca started, was rescheduled, his eyes fixed on me. "You should have stayed home, Lila." Like Evie should have stayed in Switzerland? The silence that followed was deafening. Jasper's facade cracked, just for a moment, before smoothing over. "You've lost your mind," he said gently. "The grief, the stress, it's finally broken you." "Stop." Bianca's voice shook. "Just stop, Jasper. It's over." He turned to her, something dangerous in his movement. "Nothing's over. We had a plan." "Your plan." She backed away. "Your lies. I never agreed to help you hide your daughter. But you agreed to take her trust fund." I watched his hands curl into fists. "To buy properties in your name with stolen money." "Money you promised was clean," Bianca shot back. "You said it was from the firm, not." "Enough." Jasper's shout made us both jump. Neither of you understands what's at stake. The investments, the developments, everything I built. With our daughter's money, I cut in, while I grieved for a child who wasn't dead. He moved toward me, but Bianca stepped between us. Don't. I've already called the police. The laugh that burst from him was chilling. With what evidence? Your word against mine? A grieving widow's delusions? Some photos that prove nothing. How about my testimony? We all turned. Evie stood in the doorway, the spare key I'd given her still in her hand. She'd grown so much in 7 years, but in that moment, I saw my 11-year-old daughter's determination in her eyes. You were supposed to stay in the car, I whispered. I'm done hiding. She faced Jasper. Done being your secret. Something shifted in Jasper's expression, fear, maybe, or recognition of what he'd lost. He reached for his phone. One call, he said, and certain people in Switzerland will make sure none of this matters. Already handled. Evie's voice was steady. The school's records, the fake passport, the bank transfers, I documented everything before I left. It's all with a lawyer now. If anything happens to me or Mom, it goes public. Jasper lunged forward, but Bianca grabbed his arm. In the struggle, her wine glass shattered on the floor, red spreading like blood across the white carpet. It's over, I said, pulling Evie close. The police are coming. The evidence is out. You've lost. He straightened his jacket, that familiar calm settling over him again. Have I? The smile he gave us made my blood run cold. Even now, backed into a corner, he looked like a man with one more card to play. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. Whatever happened next would change everything, but looking at Evie, feeling her strength beside me, I knew we were ready. The truth was finally coming to light, and not even Jasper could stop it now. Could he? The police sirens grew louder, but Jasper's smile only widened. He reached into his jacket, pulling out a thick envelope. You really should have checked the safe more carefully, Lila. He tossed it onto Bianca's glass coffee table. There's always a backup plan. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside were photos, dozens of them. Evie at her Swiss boarding school, me following Jasper to the hotel, Bianca's apartment building. All time-stamped, all recent. You knew, I whispered. You've known everything. Of course I knew. Did you think I wouldn't have people watching my own daughter?
He loosened his tie.
The real question is, who's been watching you? The apartment door burst open. 2 men in suits entered, neither police. One nodded to Jasper while the other moved toward Evie. No. I stepped between them, but Jasper caught my arm. It's over, Lila. Evie's going back to Switzerland, where she'll be safe from your delusions. His grip tightened. The police will find a distraught woman who couldn't let go of her daughter's death, who dragged her husband's innocent girlfriend into dangerous fantasies. Tell them, I pleaded with Bianca. Tell them the truth. She wouldn't meet my eyes. I'm sorry. He has everything in my name. The properties, the accounts. Her voice cracked. I can't. The man reached for Evie. She backed away, but there was nowhere to go. Mom, she called out, fear cracking through her composure. Mom, please. Let her go. I struggled against Jasper's grip. She's just a child. She's my child too. His voice softened to that familiar, reasonable tone. And you're sick, Lila. You need help. The kind of help I've arranged at a private facility upstate. The second man produced papers, commitment forms. My signature forged perfectly at the bottom. You can't do this, I said, but the words sounded hollow even to me. Of course he could. He'd been planning this for years. The siren stopped outside. Real police this time, but they'd find exactly what Jasper wanted them to find. A delusional woman. A concerned husband. A frightened teenager who'd been manipulated into believing she was someone else. It's for the best, Jasper murmured, his lips close to my ear. In time, you'll understand. I'm protecting our family. You destroyed our family. I watched helplessly as they led Evie toward the door. Everything we had. I built everything we had. His mask slipped, just for a moment. The firm, the reputation, all of it. I wasn't going to let a trust fund and a teenage girl ruin it. The police knocked. Evie looked back at me, tears streaming down her face. In that moment, I saw both the teenager she'd become and the little girl I'd lost. 7 years of birthdays, scraped knees, first crushes, all stolen by the man still holding my arm. Say goodbye, Lila. Jasper's voice was gentle again, reasonable, perfect for the police about to enter. It's time to let her go. Again. The door opened. Uniforms flooded in.
Questions started.
Statements were taken. And through it all, I watched my daughter disappear for the second time in my life. But this time was different. This time, I knew she was alive. This time, I had nothing left to lose. As they led me toward the waiting ambulance, I caught one last glimpse of Jasper's face. He'd won and he knew it. His perfect life was safe. His secrets were secure. He didn't notice me palm Bianca's phone from the coffee table. Didn't see me slip it into my pocket as they guided me outside. Didn't realize that sometimes rock bottom is exactly where you need to be to start fighting back. The private facility's garden reminded me of my memorial roses, though these blooms were carefully manicured into submission. 3 days of observation had taught me the guards' patterns, the blind spots in the security cameras, and most importantly, the contents of Bianca's phone. I was pruning hydrangeas when Jasper arrived for his weekly visit, right on schedule. "You're looking better," he said, sitting beside me on the bench.
Dr.
"Harrison says you're making progress." I've had time to think. I kept my eyes on the flowers.
About Evie, about us.
"You were right, I needed help." His hand covered mine, warm and familiar. "I knew you'd understand eventually." "I understand everything now." I pulled out Bianca's phone, watching his expression shift, especially after reading your emails. The warmth vanished from his touch. "Where did you get that?" "You should have checked my pockets before the commitment." I opened the email chain between him and the Swiss school. Interesting reading, especially the part about the trust fund transfers. "Give me the phone, Lila." "The police have copies already." A lie, but he flinched. Along with Bianca's statement, he stood, scanning the garden. We were alone, exactly as I'd planned. Bianca wouldn't. She did. I showed him the time-stamped video confession she'd recorded yesterday. After you transferred everything into your name, she realized she was just another loose end. Like me. "You don't understand what you've done." His voice dropped to that dangerous whisper I'd heard at Bianca's apartment. "The people I work with. The people you stole from?" I stood, matching his tone. "The ones whose money you laundered through Evie's trust fund?" Color drained from his face. "How?" "Bianca kept records. Insurance, she called it. Smart woman." I took a step closer. "She's talking to the FBI right now." His hand shot out, but this time I was ready. I caught his wrist, feeling the tremors of desperation in his grip. "It's over, Jasper. Evie's being brought back from Switzerland. The police are on their way. You've lost." "Lost?" He laughed, an ugly sound. "I built this life from nothing. Everything we had was built on our daughter's grave." I twisted free. "A grave you filled with lies while you played the grieving father." "I protected her." His composure shattered. "From the trust fund, from the responsibility, from becoming another spoiled heiress. You protected your access to her money." The truth felt like a weapon now. "And when she threatened to expose you, she was going to ruin everything." His shout echoed across the garden. "Coming home early, finding the transfer documents, threatening to tell you." I hit record on Bianca's phone, hidden in my pocket. Finally, after 7 years, the real story. "So you faked her death?" My voice stayed steady. "Sent her away and made me believe I'd lost my child? I gave her a better life. Private school, protection from the family legacy. You gave her trauma." I stepped back as guards appeared at both garden entrances. "And now you've given me your confession." He lunged forward just as the guards reached us. In the struggle, Bianca's phone clattered to the ground, the recording still running. "You can't prove anything," he snarled as they restrained him. "Actually," a familiar voice called from the garden entrance, "she can." Evie stood there, flanked by FBI agents, her eyes fixed on her father. Behind her, Bianca nodded to me. One final act of rebellion against the man who'd underestimated us all. "It's done," I said, watching them lead Jasper away. "It's finally done." Evie's hand slipped into mine, warm and real and here. "Let's go home, Mom." This time, when we left the garden, we left together. The memorial garden looked different in the morning light. I knelt beside the roses, gently removing the placard that had marked this space as a tribute to my lost daughter. Behind me, Evie's footsteps crunched on the gravel path. "We could plant something new," she said, kneeling beside me. "Something that grows wild." 6 months had passed since Jasper's arrest. The trial had been quick, his confession damning. The financial investigations were still ongoing, but we'd stopped following the headlines weeks ago. I was thinking sunflowers. I brushed dirt from my hands. They always turned toward the light. A manila envelope sat on the garden bench, delivered this morning from Jasper's lawyers. Inside was a letter I hadn't decided whether to read, along with signed divorce papers and documents returning control of Evie's trust fund. Evie picked up the envelope, weighing it carefully. "Are you going to open it?" "I'm not sure his words matter anymore." She nodded, understanding in her eyes that sometimes seemed too old for her 18 years. "I visited him yesterday. This was new. You didn't tell me. I needed to do it alone." She sat on the bench, her fingers tracing the envelope's edge.
He cried.
Actually cried. Said he thought he was protecting me from becoming spoiled by the money, by the responsibility. "And what did you say?" "That he could have trusted me. Trusted us." She pulled out the letter. "Maybe you should read it." I took the paper, feeling its weight. 7 years of lies condensed into a single page. The words blurred together at first, then sharpened. I convinced myself I was protecting our family, but I was protecting my own fears. The truth is, I was afraid of losing control, of watching our daughter become something I couldn't manage. In trying to prevent one future, I destroyed another. "I'm sorry. Do you believe him?" Evie asked softly. I folded the letter, tucking it back into the envelope. "I believe he believes it. But sometimes sorry isn't enough." A car pulled into the driveway, Bianca's sleek sedan. After her testimony helped convict Jasper, she'd used her share of the recovered funds to start over, helping other families navigate financial fraud cases. "Ready," she called from the car. "The realtor's meeting us at 10. We were selling the house, looking for somewhere new. Somewhere without memories in every corner." "Just a minute," I called back. There was one last thing to do. I handed Evie a trowel. Together, we dug a small hole among the roses. I placed the envelope inside, letting the garden that had held my grief now hold these final pieces of our old life. "Mom," Evie's voice was quiet. "Do you ever wish I hadn't come back? That you'd never known the truth?" I pulled her close, feeling her heartbeat against mine.
"Never."
The truth set us both free. As we covered the letter with earth, I thought about Jasper's words about protection. He'd been right about one thing: the truth could hurt, but lies could destroy, and the space between those choices was where real love lived. "Come on," I said, standing. "Let's go find our new home." We walked to the car together, leaving the garden behind. The roses would bloom for someone else now, and that was okay. Our story wasn't about the flowers anymore. It was about what grew in their place. Bianca smiled as we got in, passing me a stack of house listings. "Ready to start over?" I looked at Evie in the rearview mirror, saw her watching the garden fade from view. Some people might call this revenge, this quiet rebuilding of a life Jasper tried to control. But as I watched my daughter turn toward her future, I realized this wasn't about revenge at all. It was about redemption. And sometimes, that's the sweetest justice of all.
The evening sun cast long shadows through the apple trees, painting our orchard in stripes of gold and darkness. I was heading back to the house after checking on the new saplings when I heard voices drifting from Grant's study window. My husband's tone made me pause. There was an edge to it I hadn't heard in our 40 years of marriage. "We can't wait any longer, Caleb. The bank's breathing down our necks." "Dad, there has to be another way." Our son's voice cracked. "What you're suggesting? Mom would never forgive us." I pressed myself against the cool brick wall, my heart thundering. Through the gap in the curtains, I could see Grant pacing, running his fingers through his silver hair the way he always did when he was scheming. Your mother doesn't need to know. Neither does Aurora. Grant stopped pacing. The insurance policy is ironclad. Once it's done, we'll have enough to save everything. The orchard, your house, all of it. My fingers dug into the rough bark of the nearest tree. Insurance policy? I hadn't signed anything recently, but using Mom and Aurora as. Keep your voice down, Grant snapped. Look, son, sometimes being a man means making hard choices to protect your family. You want to keep this legacy alive for Aurora, don't you? The silence that followed felt like a physical weight on my chest. Finally, Caleb spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. When? 2 weeks. I've already made the arrangements. I forced myself to breathe slowly, fighting the urge to burst through the door and confront them. Instead, I pushed away from the wall and walked to the garden shed, my legs trembling. Inside, I gripped the workbench until my knuckles turned white. The screen door slammed, and I watched through the dusty window as Caleb hurried to his car. His shoulders were hunched, head down, the same posture he'd had as a teenager when he was hiding something. That evening, I moved through dinner preparation like a sleepwalker. Grant came up behind me as I chopped vegetables, wrapping his arms around my waist like he had thousands of times before. Something smells wonderful, he murmured, kissing my neck. I nearly cut myself, fighting the urge to pull away. Just trying something new with the chicken. My voice sounded strange to my own ears. You okay, sweetheart? You seem tense. I turned and forced a smile, studying the face I thought I knew so well. The crow's feet around his eyes, the dimple in his left cheek, the scar above his eyebrow from a childhood accident, all suddenly seemed like the features of a stranger. Just tired. The new saplings needed extra attention today. He nodded, accepting the lie as easily as I had accepted his presence in my life all these years. Why don't you let me finish up here? You should rest. Actually, I think I'll call Miriam. She mentioned having some extra mason jars for the preserves. As I walked to the phone, Aurora burst through the front door, her school backpack bouncing. Grandma, I got an A on my science project. I hugged her tight, breathing in the scent of sunshine and strawberry shampoo. Over her head, I caught Grant watching us, his expression unreadable. That's wonderful, sweetheart, I said, my voice steady despite the fear coursing through me. Why don't you tell me all about it while I make a quick phone call? I needed to talk to Miriam. I needed help, because whatever Grant and Caleb were planning, they'd made one crucial mistake. They'd threatened not just me, but my granddaughter. And that was something I couldn't let stand. Miriam's kitchen always smelled of coffee and fresh herbs, a comforting constant in my increasingly unstable world. She listened without interrupting as I described the conversation I'd overheard, her weathered hands wrapped around her mug. Have you checked the office safe? She asked finally. I shook my head. Grant changed the combination last month. Said it was routine security. Routine, my foot. Miriam set her mug down with a sharp click. You need to get in there, Evelyn. Whatever they're planning, the proof will be in those papers. The next morning, I watched Grant and Caleb through the kitchen window as they walked the orchard's eastern border. Their heads were bent close, shoulders tense. When they returned for breakfast, the tension followed them inside like a storm cloud. The irrigation system's shot, Caleb announced, dropping into his chair. Another 5,000 we don't have. Grant's jaw tightened. We'll figure something out. That's what you always say, Dad. Caleb's voice had an edge I'd never heard before. But maybe it's time to accept. Enough. Grant cut him off with a look that made Caleb shrink back into his chair, just like when he was a boy. I set plates of eggs and toast in front of them, my hands steady despite my racing heart. Where's Lila this morning? Working. Caleb stabbed at his eggs. Always working. The bitterness in his voice made me pause. Everything okay between you two? Just peachy. He pushed his plate away. I should go. Aurora's got soccer practice later. After he left, Grant lingered over his coffee, watching me clean up. You're awful quiet this morning. Just thinking about the orchard. I kept my back to him, scrubbing a pan that was already clean. Maybe we should consider selling some of the back acreage. The silence that followed was heavy. When Grant finally spoke, his voice was carefully controlled. That land's been in my family for generations. We're not selling, even if it means saving the rest. I said no, Evelyn. His chair scraped against the floor as he stood. I've got it handled. Later that afternoon, I drove to Caleb and Lila's house, hoping to catch my daughter-in-law before she left for work. Instead, I found Aurora alone in the driveway, bouncing a soccer ball. Where's your mom, sweetheart? Inside, talking to someone. Aurora caught the ball. She's using her angry voice. Through the open window, I could hear Lila pacing, her heels clicking on the hardwood floors. I don't care what Caleb promised his father. No, you listen to me. I didn't marry into this family to watch everything go down in flames. Yes, I know about the insurance policy. We need to move faster. My blood ran cold. Lila was involved too. Aurora's ball hit the side of the house with a thud. Grandma, you look funny. I forced a smile. Just remembered something I need to do. Come on, I'll drop you at practice. That evening, I waited until Grant was in the shower before trying his office. The safe was hidden behind a painting of the orchard in its early days. My fingers trembled as I input the old combination, our wedding date, on a hunch. It worked. Inside, beneath stacks of deed papers and tax documents, I found a manila envelope. My heart nearly stopped when I saw what was inside. 2 life insurance policies, one for me and one for Aurora, both for substantial amounts. And beneath them, a handwritten note in Grant's familiar scrawl. Final arrangements made. M confirms no trace. 2 weeks max. The shower stopped running upstairs. I quickly replaced everything and shut the safe, my mind racing. Whatever they were planning would happen soon. I had to protect Aurora, but I couldn't trust anyone, not Grant, not Caleb, not even Lila. As I left the office, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. I know what they're planning. Meet me tomorrow. Come alone. The diner on Route 7 was nearly empty when I arrived, my hands still shaking from the text message. A woman sat alone in a corner booth, her dark hair pulled back severely from her face. My breath caught when she turned. It was Marcus & Sons Insurance, the company letterhead I'd seen on those policies in Grant's safe. Mrs. Harper. She gestured to the seat across from her. I'm Rebecca Thorne. I handle your husband's accounts. I slid into the booth, studying her carefully pressed suit, her perfectly manicured nails. You sent the text. Your husband made some. Concerning changes to your policies last month. She pulled out a manila folder. Normally, I wouldn't get involved, but when I saw the beneficiary arrangements and the rush order. The waitress appeared with coffee. I waited until she left before asking, what beneficiary arrangements? Your policy now lists Grant as the sole beneficiary, with Caleb as secondary. But Aurora's? She hesitated. Aurora's lists only Grant. Caleb and Lila were explicitly excluded. My coffee cup clattered against its saucer. That's impossible. Lila would never. There's more. Rebecca lowered her voice. The policies were changed to include coverage for accidental death during transportation. Specifically, water-related incidents. The Orchard's lake. Grant had been insisting on taking Aurora fishing their next weekend. I have to go. I stood so quickly my hip caught the table, sloshing coffee across the folder. Mrs. Harper. Rebecca grabbed my wrist. There's a name you should know, Michael Chin. He's a private investigator who specializes in insurance fraud. Here's his card. At home, I found Lila waiting in the kitchen, her designer handbag perched on our worn counter like an exotic bird. We need to talk, she said, her voice brittle. About Aurora. I know about the insurance policies. The words burst out before I could stop them. Lila's face drained of color. You don't understand. Caleb's in trouble, deep trouble. Grant promised if we helped him. Helped him what? Kill me and my granddaughter? No. Lila's composure cracked. It wasn't supposed to be like this. Grant said he had a plan to save the orchard, to save all of us. But now, she wrapped her arms around herself. Caleb's changed. He's not sleeping, barely eating. Yesterday I found him researching boat accidents on his laptop. My legs wouldn't hold me anymore. I sank into a chair. Why didn't you come to me sooner? Because I'm leaving him. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I'm taking Aurora and getting out before. She stopped abruptly as footsteps approached the kitchen. Grant appeared in the doorway, his easy smile freezing when he saw us. What's going on here? Just girl talk, Lila said quickly, wiping her eyes. Wedding anniversary coming up. Wanted Evelyn's advice on a gift for Caleb. Your anniversary's not for months, Grant said slowly, his eyes moving between us. Early planning. Lila grabbed her bag. I should go. Aurora will be home soon. After she left, Grant lingered, watching me put away dishes. Everything okay, sweetheart? You seem distracted lately. I thought of the insurance agent's card burning a hole in my pocket, of Lila's tears, of Aurora's bright smile. Just worried about the orchard. I lied. You know how I get this time of year. He came up behind me, his hands settling on my shoulders. Once his touch had meant safety. Now it felt like a trap closing in. Trust me, he murmured, kissing my neck. Everything's going to work out fine. Why don't you and Aurora come fishing with me this weekend? Like old times. I forced myself to lean back against him, fighting the urge to run. That sounds perfect. But as I stood there in my husband's embrace, I was already planning how to get Aurora as far away from this orchard and its lake as possible. Michael Chen's office smelled of leather and coffee, with case files stacked neatly on every surface. He studied the insurance documents spread across his desk, occasionally making notes in precise handwriting. Your husband's clever, he said finally. The policies are legitimate, but the way they're structured. He tapped his pen against a highlighted clause. It's designed to look like an accident. The payout would be triple if both deaths occurred during the same incident. My hands clenched in my lap. Both deaths. There's something else. He pulled out a bank statement. Your orchard's been losing money for years, but there are regular deposits from an offshore account. Small amounts under reporting thresholds. They started around the time your son's construction business failed. Grant's been laundering money? Through the orchard, yes. But the deposits stopped 2 months ago. He leaned forward, right when the insurance policies were modified. A knock at the door made us both jump. Chen's assistant entered with a folder. The background check you requested on Grant Harper, sir. What I saw inside shattered everything I thought I knew about my husband. 3 previous marriages, all ended with suspicious accidents. 2 wives had drowned. I barely made it to the bathroom before getting sick. When I returned home, Aurora was sitting on our porch steps crying. My heart stopped until I saw she was physically unhurt. What's wrong, sweetheart? Mom and Dad were fighting again. She wiped her eyes. Dad said something about Grandpa Grant being dangerous, and Mom said we have to leave. But I don't want to leave the orchard. I sat beside her, pulling her close. Sometimes grown-ups say things they don't mean when they're upset. But Mom already packed our bags. They're in her car trunk. Before I could respond, Grant's truck roared up the driveway. He got out, slamming the door so hard the truck shook. Aurora, go inside and wash up for dinner, I said quickly. Grant watched her go, his face darkening. Lila called. Says she's taking Aurora to her sister's for a while. His voice was carefully controlled. Did you know about this? No. The lie felt like acid on my tongue. When? Doesn't matter. They're not going anywhere. He stepped closer, and for the first time in our marriage, I felt afraid of him. This family stays together, Evelyn. Whatever it takes. The fishing trip, I said suddenly. Maybe we should postpone. Absolutely not. His hand gripped my arm, gentle but firm. It's tradition. Besides, I've already arranged everything. That night, I waited until Grant was asleep before slipping out to call Lila. We have to move faster, I whispered. Get Aurora and go tonight. I'll meet you. It's too late, Lila cut in, her voice shaking. Caleb found the bags. He called Grant. They're watching us now. She lowered her voice further. Grant showed up an hour ago. He said if I try to leave with Aurora, he'll make sure Caleb goes to prison for the money laundering. He has proof. Listen to me carefully, I said, my mind racing. Tomorrow morning, take Aurora to school as usual. I'll handle the rest. After hanging up, I stood in the dark kitchen, watching the moonlight cast shadows through the apple trees. Somewhere in the distance, an owl called, and I remembered something my mother used to say. Sometimes you have to burn it all down to save what matters most. I went to Grant's study and opened his laptop. It was time to send some very interesting financial records to the FBI. The FBI agent's email arrived at dawn. Evidence received. Investigation pending. Maintain normal routine. I deleted it just as Grant's footsteps creaked overhead. My hands shook as I started the coffee, wondering if this would be our last normal morning together. Grant appeared in his fishing clothes, checking his phone. Caleb's bringing Aurora by early. Says Lila's not feeling well. Maybe we should postpone. I kept my voice casual, pouring his coffee. If Lila's sick, she's fine. His tone hardened. Everything's set for today. Don't make this difficult, Evelyn. The morning sun caught his wedding ring as he reached for the cup, and I remembered the day I'd placed it on his finger. How many other wives had done the same before their accidents? Caleb's truck pulled up, Aurora bouncing out with her pink fishing vest. Grant went to help with the tackle boxes, leaving me alone with our son. Dad seems different, Caleb whispered, watching through the window. Last night, he was in his office for hours, shredding papers. When I asked about it, he just stared at me like I wasn't even his son. Where's Lila really? His face crumpled. Gone. She left a note saying she couldn't watch what was about to happen. Mom, what's going on? Before I could answer, Aurora burst in. Grandma, look what Dad bought me. She held up a new life jacket, bright yellow against her dark hair. Beautiful, sweetheart. My voice nearly broke. Why don't you help Grandpa load the truck? I need to talk to your dad. Once she was gone, I gripped Caleb's arm. Listen carefully. In exactly 1 hour, call the sheriff. Tell them to check the lake. Tell them. Grant appeared in the doorway. Ready to go? The drive to the lake was endless. Aurora chatted about school while I watched Grant's hands on the steering wheel, wondering how many times they'd guided a boat to disaster. At the dock, he insisted on loading everything himself, positioning the cooler and tackle boxes with precise care. Perfect day for fishing, he said, helping Aurora aboard. Water's calm as glass. I stepped onto the boat, my heart pounding. The lake stretched before us, dark and deep. Grant started the motor, and I saw him check his watch. Caleb not coming? I asked. He'll join us later. Grant's smile didn't reach his eyes. Let's head to the deep spot first. Better fishing there. We were halfway across when Grant's phone buzzed. His face darkened as he read the message. Evelyn, he said quietly. Did you contact the FBI? Aurora looked up from her fishing rod, sensing the tension. Grant's hand tightened on the throttle. I know about the other wives, I said. About the money laundering. It's over, Grant. He laughed, but it was a hollow sound. Over? Look around, Evelyn. We're in the middle of a lake. No witnesses. Just like before. Grandpa. Aurora's voice trembled. The sheriff is coming, I said. Caleb called them 20 minutes ago. Grant's face contorted. He reached for something under the cooler. A heavy wrench that glinted in the morning sun. I built this life, he snarled. Everything I did was for the family. I won't let you destroy it. He lunged forward just as sirens wailed in the distance. Aurora screamed. I grabbed her, shielding her with my body as Grant swung the wrench. But his foot caught on a tackle box and he stumbled. The boat lurched. The last thing I saw was his face, twisted with rage and disbelief, as he toppled backward into the dark water. Aurora clung to me, sobbing, as police boats roared toward us across the glass-smooth lake. Above us, an eagle circled, free and watchful in the morning sky. The sheriff's station felt too bright, too sterile. Aurora slept on the bench beside me, her fishing vest still damp, while I answered endless questions about Grant, about the orchard, about the past 40 years of my life that now seemed like an elaborate lie. We found evidence in his office, Detective Morris said, sliding photos across the desk. Records of his previous wives, offshore accounts, detailed plans for today. She paused. And this? The last photo showed a handwritten list. My name. Aurora's name. Times, dates, insurance policy numbers. And at the bottom, in Grant's precise handwriting. Backup plan. Lila knows what to do. My blood ran cold. Where's Lila now? That's what concerns us. Morris leaned forward. She withdrew $50,000 yesterday morning. And she has legal custody of Aurora. A commotion erupted in the hallway. Caleb burst in, his face ashen. They found Dad's body. And Mom. He glanced at Aurora before lowering his voice. Lila just emptied our accounts. She's gone. Aurora stirred, blinking in the harsh fluorescent light. When can we go home? Home. The word hit me like a physical blow. The orchard wasn't just property. It was Aurora's sanctuary, her inheritance. And now it was evidence in a federal investigation. Mrs. Harper, Morris said gently. Given the scope of the money laundering, the property will be seized, including the orchard. But it's harvest season, I protested weakly. The workers, the contracts. Mom, Caleb's voice cracked. There's more. The insurance company called. Since what happened, they're investigating all the policies. They're freezing everything. Aurora sat up, suddenly alert. Are we poor now? The simple question shattered what remained of my composure. I pulled her close, breathing in the lingering scent of lake water and sunshine. No, sweetheart. We have something better than money. We have each other. But later that night, in Miriam's guest room, the full weight of our situation crushed me. Aurora finally slept, but I couldn't stop seeing Grant's face as he fell. Couldn't stop wondering if I could have prevented all of this years ago if I'd just paid more attention. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. A photo appeared, Lila, at what looked like an airport, with Aurora's passport in her hand. The message read, Insurance policy or custody papers, your choice. Meet tomorrow noon at the lake house. Come alone. I deleted the message before Caleb could see it. He sat slumped in Miriam's armchair, staring at his wedding ring. I should have known, he whispered. All those late-night meetings, the mysterious deposits. Dad made me think I was saving the family, but I was just helping him set up his next victims. You were protecting your daughter, I said, but the words felt hollow. Was I? He looked up, his eyes red. Or was I just too much of a coward to stand up to him? Dawn crept in, painting Miriam's walls the same gold as the orchard at harvest time. I watched Aurora sleep, thinking of all the autumn mornings she'd spent in those trees, of her laughter echoing across the lake that had almost claimed us both. I couldn't let her lose everything. Not her home, not her future, not her faith in family. The lake house key was still in my pocket, heavy as guilt. Lila wanted to negotiate? Fine. But this time, I wouldn't be fighting just for survival. This time, I'd be fighting for Aurora's soul. And God help anyone who tried to stop me. The lake house stood silent in the noon sun, its windows reflecting the water like blind eyes. I parked beside Lila's rental car, noticing the packed suitcases in the back seat. My phone buzzed, Caleb asking where I was. I turned it off. Inside, Lila sat at the kitchen table, Aurora's passport laid out like a playing card. She didn't look up when I entered. Grant taught me everything, she said quietly. How to move money, create paper trails, set up accounts. He promised me a way out. Where's Aurora? Safe. Upstairs watching TV. Lila's manicured nail tapped the passport. Did you know Grant had a contingency plan? If anything went wrong, I was supposed to take Aurora and disappear. He called it preserving the bloodline. You're not taking her anywhere. No. She finally met my eyes. The FBI's freezing all the accounts tomorrow. The orchard's gone. Caleb's facing criminal charges. What exactly are you offering her, Evelyn? A life of poverty and shame. Movement caught my eye, a shadow passing upstairs. Aurora, you knew, I said. About the other wives. About what he planned for us at the lake. I knew he'd do anything to protect what he built. Lila's voice hardened. Just like I will. Sign custody over to me, and I'll make sure Aurora wants for nothing. Refuse. She pulled out her phone. One call and certain documents reached the FBI. Documents that implicate you in Grant's schemes. You really think that's what matters to her? Money. It matters to everyone eventually. She stood, smoothing her expensive blouse. Look what poverty did to Caleb, turned him into his father's puppet. I won't let that happen to Aurora. No, a small voice said from the stairs. You're just like Grandpa Grant. You only care about money. Aurora stood on the landing, clutching her backpack. The same one she'd worn fishing, I realized. She must have packed it at Miriam's, sensing something was wrong. Sweetheart. Lila started forward, but Aurora backed away. I heard you on the phone last night, Aurora said. You told someone you were going to sell the orchard once you got rid of Grandma. But it's not yours to sell. Aurora, please. The orchard belongs to all of us, Aurora continued, her voice stronger. Dad told me the stories. How great-grandpa planted every tree by hand. How Grandma saved them during the drought. That's worth more than money. Lila's face twisted. You're too young to understand. I understand everything. Aurora descended the stairs, moving to stand beside me. And I choose Grandma. Lila's hand shot out, grabbing Aurora's arm. I moved without thinking, decades of orchard work lending strength to my push. Lila stumbled backward, hitting the table. Her phone clattered to the floor, screen cracking. It's over, I said, as police sirens wailed in the distance. Caleb must have traced my car. Let it go, Lila. She laughed, a broken sound. Let it go. Like you let Grant go. I saw you on the boat. You could have saved him. No, I said quietly. He chose his path, just like you chose yours. The difference is, I choose to break the cycle. Aurora's hand slipped into mine as police cars pulled up outside. In the moment before officers burst in, I saw something shift in Lila's eyes. Not surrender, exactly, but recognition. She'd lost not because of money or power, but because she'd forgotten what truly made a family strong. Love, trust, and the courage to choose what's right, no matter the cost. Spring came early to the orchard. 6 months after everything happened, the apple trees burst into bloom, their petals drifting like snow across the newly tilled earth. Aurora and I walked between the rows, checking the grafts we'd done on the damaged trees. Look, Grandma. She pointed to a branch where pink blossoms had emerged from a careful splice. It worked, just like your great-grandfather taught me. I touched the rough bark. Sometimes broken things just need time and care to heal. The FBI had eventually released part of the orchard back to us, after Caleb's testimony helped unravel Grant's financial web. He'd taken a plea deal, community service, and restitution instead of prison time. Now he worked alongside the seasonal workers, learning the rhythms of honest labor. I spotted him near the irrigation pipes, showing a new worker how to check the pressure gauges. He looked younger somehow, The weight of deception lifted from his shoulders. "Dad's different now," Aurora said, reading my thoughts the way she always could. "He smiles more. People can change, sweetheart, if they want it badly enough." We reached the lake's edge, where Miriam waited with her famous apple pies for the workers' lunch break. The water sparkled innocently in the spring sun, but Aurora still wouldn't go near it. Some wounds took longer to heal than others. "I got another letter from Mom," Aurora said quietly, helping Miriam unpack the food. "She's in California. Says she's seeing a therapist. How do you feel about that?" "Okay, I guess." She arranged paper plates with careful precision. "I'm not ready to see her yet, but maybe someday." Caleb joined us, wiping sweat from his forehead. "The north section's looking good. Those heritage varietals you insisted on saving are thriving." "Your grandfather wasn't always wrong," I said. "He just forgot what really mattered along the way." A comfortable silence fell, broken only by the buzz of early bees among the blossoms. Then Aurora spoke up. "I found something in the old office. When we were cleaning," she pulled a weathered envelope from her pocket. I recognized Grant's handwriting immediately. "You don't have to read it," Caleb said quickly, but I shook my head. "No, it's time." The letter was dated the morning of the lake incident. Grant's usually precise penmanship was shaky. "Evelyn, by the time you read this, you'll know everything. The truth you discovered was only part of it. The real shame is that I lost sight of what made the orchard special. Not the money or the legacy, but the love you poured into every tree. Every harvest, every moment with our family. I thought I was protecting our future, but I was destroying it instead. The lake will claim me like it should have years ago, when I let Elizabeth drown rather than risk exposure. Perhaps that's when I truly lost my way. Take care of Aurora. She has your strength, not my weakness. Grant." I folded the letter carefully, letting it drop into the lake where it floated for a moment before sinking into the depths. "You okay, Mom?" Caleb touched my shoulder. "Yes," I said, and meant it. The past is where it belongs. We have grafts to tend. As we walked back through the orchard, Aurora skipping ahead to check her favorite trees, I thought about roots, how they can strangle or nourish, depending on how you tend them. Grant had chosen to let his roots twist into something dark, but our family tree was blooming again, stronger for having weathered the storm. The spring breeze carried the sweet scent of apple blossoms and possibility, and for the first time in months, I felt truly at peace.
The call came while I was presenting my latest design project to a room full of executives. My phone kept buzzing in my pocket, the same number over and over. After the fourth attempt, I excused myself, expecting an emergency. Instead, I heard a voice I hadn't heard in 15 years. "Tessa? It's your father." My name is Tessa, and that moment shattered the carefully constructed peace I'd built since I was 15. I stood in the hallway of my office building, watching my reflection in the glass windows distort as my hand trembled around the phone. "How did you get this number?" I managed to keep my voice steady, professional. The same tone I just used to discuss typography and brand cohesion moments ago. "Your grandmother,
Etta.
She's been keeping me updated about you." A pause. "I need your help, Tessa." Of course he did. 15 years of silence, and now he needed something. I watched a group of pigeons scatter across the courtyard below, remembering how he used to chase them with me in the park when I was little. Before Lorraine, before everything fell apart. "I'm in a meeting," I said, though my feet remained rooted to the spot. "I can't." "Please," he cut in. "I wouldn't call if it wasn't important. Lorraine and I, we're about to lose everything. The house, our savings. I made some mistakes." I pressed my forehead against the cool glass. "That's not my problem. You're doing well, aren't you? The design firm, your own place in the city. I've seen your work online. You're talented, just like your mother was." The mention of my mother sent a jolt through my chest. Don't you dare bring her into this." "I know I have no right to ask," he continued, his voice cracking. "But we need help. Just hear me out over coffee. 1 hour of your time. That's all I'm asking." Behind me, I could hear my colleagues' muffled voices through the conference room door. My presentation wasn't finished. My life was waiting. The life I'd built without him. The one where I didn't have to remember the sound of screaming matches or the sight of my things packed in garbage bags on the front lawn. "Why now?" I asked, but I already knew. Money has a way of bringing people back from the dead. Because I'm trying to make things right, he said. And because there are things you need to know. About your mother. About what really happened. My grip tightened on the phone. What things? Not over the phone. Please, Tessa. Just coffee. I should have said no. Should have hung up and walked back into my meeting, back to my orderly life where the past stayed buried. Instead, I heard myself say, tomorrow, 8 a.m. The coffee shop on 4th and Pine. 1 hour. Thank you, he breathed. Thank you, Tessa. After hanging up, I stood there for a long moment, watching my reflection. Same brown hair as my mother, same determined set to my jaw. But my eyes, those were his. I'd spent years avoiding mirrors because of those eyes. My phone buzzed again, a text this time from an unknown number. Looking forward to seeing you, sweetheart.
Elle.
Lorraine. Of course she was listening in. She always had been. I walked back into the conference room, apologizing for the interruption, but my mind was already racing ahead to tomorrow. To coffee with the man who chose his new wife over his daughter. To whatever secrets he claimed to have about my mother. To the chance, perhaps, to finally make them pay for what they did. I smiled at my clients and picked up where I'd left off, but inside, 15 years of carefully buried rage began to stir. I couldn't sleep that night. My apartment felt too quiet, too empty, like the calm before a storm. At 3 a.m, I found myself digging through my closet, pulling out a dusty shoebox I hadn't opened in years. Inside were the fragments of my childhood, photos, report cards, birthday cards. At the bottom, wrapped in tissue paper, lay my mother's silver locket, the one piece of her I'd managed to keep when Lorraine had cleaned house after the funeral. The clasp was still broken. Dad had promised to fix it back when promises meant something. My phone lit up with a text from my grandmother. Be careful tomorrow, sweetheart. Your father isn't the same man you remember. I stared at the message, remembering the day everything changed. I was 12 when he brought Lorraine home for dinner. She'd worn a cream-colored blazer and pearl earrings, her smile as practiced as her posture. Within 6 months, she'd moved in. Within a year, my mother's garden had been paved over for a new driveway. Your father needs a fresh start, Lorraine had said, watching me cry over the destroyed roses. We all do. The fresh start hadn't included me. I arrived at the coffee shop 20 minutes early, choosing a table with a clear view of both exits. When they walked in, the sight of them knocked the air from my lungs. Dad looked older, grayer, his confident salesman's stride replaced by something hesitant. Lorraine, though, she hadn't aged a day, like time itself was afraid to cross her. Tessa, Dad said, pulling out a chair.
His hands shook slightly.
You look just like your mother. Lorraine's smile tightened. You've done well for yourself. That firm of yours must be paying quite well. Let's skip the small talk, I said, keeping my voice level. Why am I here? Dad glanced at Lorraine before speaking. We've hit some rough times. Investments gone bad, the market crash. We're about to lose the house. Our house, Lorraine corrected. The one we built together. I felt my jaw clench. You mean the house you kicked me out of when I was 15? That was a misunderstanding, Dad started, but Lorraine cut him off. We all made mistakes back then. You were a difficult teenager, Tessa. But we're family. Family helps each other. Family? I pulled out my phone, showing them Lorraine's text from yesterday. Is that why you were eavesdropping on our call? Dad's expression shifted. What text? Lorraine's hand moved to cover his. I was worried about your father. He's been so stressed lately. I just wanted to make sure everything went smoothly. Nothing about this is smooth, I said. You want my money? After everything you did? There's more, Dad said quickly. It's about your mother. About what really happened before she died. The coffee shop suddenly felt too small, too warm. Mom died of cancer. I was there. Yes, but... He looked at Lorraine again, who gave an almost imperceptible nod. There were complications with her treatment. Things you don't know about. What things? We should discuss this somewhere more private, Lorraine suggested. Perhaps you could come to the house? See your old room? My old room. The The one they converted into a home gym within weeks of throwing me out. Whatever you have to say it here. Dad leaned forward. Your mother's life insurance policy. There were irregularities. Things that could change everything. Before he could continue, Lorraine's phone buzzed. Her face paled as she read the message. We need to go.
Now.
But we haven't, Dad protested. Now, Calvin. They left in a hurry, leaving me with more questions than answers. As I watched them through the window, I saw Lorraine grab Dad's arm, speaking urgently. He looked back at me once, his expression a mix of regret and fear. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Your mother would be proud of you. Not everyone has the strength to face their past.
Ash.
I stared at the message, wondering who H was and how they knew about this meeting. Something bigger was happening, something that went beyond a simple request for money. And I was going to find out what it was. After the coffee shop, I drove straight to my grandmother's house. Etta had always been my safe harbor, the one person who'd chosen me over Lorraine's manipulations. But today, she had some explaining to do. I found her in her garden, pruning roses that looked just like the ones Lorraine had destroyed.
She didn't seem surprised to see me.
I wondered how long it would take you to show up, she said, setting down her shears.
Come inside.
There's something you need to see. The house smelled like cinnamon and old books, just like always. But instead of heading to the kitchen for our usual tea, Etta led me upstairs to her study. She pulled out a wooden box from behind a row of photo albums. Your mother left these with me, she said, her hands trembling slightly. Made me promise not to show you until you were ready. Inside were dozens of letters, some yellowed with age, others newer. All addressed to me, in my mother's handwriting. She knew she was dying long before she told anyone, Etta said softly. Even before Lorraine came into the picture. I picked up the first letter, dated just weeks before she died. The paper felt fragile, like it might crumble along with my carefully constructed walls. Dear Tessa, if you're reading this, then things have happened exactly as I feared they would. Lorraine isn't who your father thinks she is. I've found proof. The letter shook in my hands. What proof? Keep reading, Etta urged. The next paragraph made my blood run cold. I've discovered discrepancies in the hospital's billing records. Treatments that were ordered but never administered. Money that disappeared. Lorraine worked in the billing department then, before she accidentally met your father at that coffee shop. My phone buzzed. Another text from H. The insurance policy wasn't the only thing that was irregular. Check the hospital records from May 2008. Who's H? I asked Etta. She smiled sadly. Helen Harper, your old English teacher. She was your mother's best friend before. Well, before Lorraine made sure they stopped speaking. The pieces started falling into place.
Yes.
Harper, who'd tried to help me when things got bad at home. Who'd offer me a place to stay after Lorraine threw me out. Who'd mysteriously lost her teaching position the following year. There's more, Etta said, pulling out another letter. Your mother knew what Lorraine was planning. She tried to warn your father, but a car door slammed outside. Through the window, I saw Lorraine getting out of her Mercedes, her face set in that familiar, determined expression. How did she know I was here? She's been watching the house, Etta said, quickly gathering the letters. Ever since your father called you. She knows about these letters, Tessa. She's been trying to find them for years. The doorbell rang, its chime somehow menacing. Go out the back, Etta said, pressing the box of letters into my hands. Take these to Helen. She'll know what to do with them. But
now, Tessa.
Your mother died trying to protect you from that woman. Don't let her win again. I slipped out through the back door as Etta answered the front. Lorraine's voice drifted through the house, honey-sweet and dangerous. Etta, dear. I thought I saw Tessa's car outside. Is she here? Just missed her, Etta replied coolly. She was dropping off some old photos. From my hiding spot behind the garage, I watched Lorraine's shadow move across the windows. You know, Calvin's very worried about her. All this dwelling on the past, it's not healthy. Neither is lying about killing someone's mother, Etta shot back. The silence that followed was deafening. I clutched the box of letters to my chest and ran to my car, my mother's words burning in my mind. Lorraine wasn't just after money. She was trying to cover her tracks that led straight back to my mother's death. As I drove away, I glanced in my rearview mirror. Lorraine stood on Etta's porch, watching me go. She lifted her phone to her ear, and I knew she was calling my father. The game had changed. This wasn't about revenge anymore. This was about justice. And I finally had the proof to get it. I found Helen Harper in a small coffee shop across town, grading papers just like she used to 15 years ago. When she saw the box of letters in my hands, she simply nodded and gestured to the chair across from her. "Your mother was right about everything," she said, closing her red pen. "But those letters are only part of the story." I placed the box between us. "Why didn't you tell me sooner? Would you have believed me?" She pulled out a manila envelope from her bag. "After Lorraine got me fired, I started digging. Found some interesting connections between her time at the hospital and several other patients who died under suspicious circumstances." My phone buzzed. Dad calling. I declined it. "She wasn't just after money," Helen continued, spreading out documents across the table. "She targeted wealthy patients, manipulated their treatments, then somehow ended up involved with their families afterward. Your father wasn't her first mark. But my mother wasn't wealthy." "No, but your father's company was about to go public. Your mother discovered the pattern and—" Helen's voice trailed off as someone entered the coffee shop. My father stood in the doorway, looking lost and older than he had yesterday. When he spotted us, his face went pale. "Tessa, wait," he called as I started gathering the papers.
Please.
"I know what this looks like." "Do you?" I shot back. "Do you know what any of this looks like?" He walked over, his hands shaking. "Lorraine, she told me everything. About the hospital, about Helen's investigation. She's scared, Tessa. Says you're trying to destroy our family with lies." Helen stood up. "Still believing her stories, Calvin? Even after what happened to Margaret?" Dad flinched.
Who?
"Her first husband. The one who died under similar circumstances to Claire." Helen pulled out another document. "Your wife has quite a history of being in the right place at the wrong time." The color drained from Dad's face. "That's not." She said she was widowed. "She was," Helen said grimly. "3 times before you."
My phone buzzed again.
A text from Etta. "Lorraine just left. She took something from my study. Be careful." "We need to go," I said, standing up.
Now.
But Dad grabbed my arm.
Wait.
"There's something else. Something I never told anyone." He pulled out an old envelope from his jacket. "Your mother left this with me the day before she died. Made me promise to open it if anything happened to her." I never did." "Why not?" "Because Lorraine found me first. Told me Claire had been delusional at the end, paranoid. That opening it would only hurt you more." His voice cracked. I wanted to believe her. It was easier than facing the truth. Suddenly, the coffee shop door opened again. Lorraine stood there, holding a familiar-looking file. "I knew you'd be here," she said, her voice eerily calm. Helen always did like playing detective. She held up the file. "Looking for this? Your mother's original medical records? The ones that disappeared from the hospital?" Dad stepped forward. "Lorraine, what did you do?" "What I had to do," she replied, her mask finally cracking. "What I always do. They were going to take everything from me, just like you're trying to do now." She reached into her purse, and I saw something metallic glint in the fluorescent light. "Nobody's taking anything," Helen said, slowly reaching for her phone. Lorraine's laugh was hollow. "That's where you're wrong. I've spent 15 years building this life. 15 years making sure the past stayed buried." She pulled out a small revolver. "And I'm not about to let you destroy it all with some letters and old hospital records." The coffee shop went silent. Dad stepped in front of me, his voice steady for the first time in years. "That's enough, Lorraine. I should have stopped you 15 years ago. I'm not failing my daughter again." As Lorraine's finger tightened on the trigger, I realized that revenge wasn't what I wanted anymore. I just wanted the truth. And now, with my father finally choosing me, the truth was about to cost us everything. The coffee shop erupted into chaos. Someone screamed, chairs scraped against the floor, and Helen dove for her phone. But all I could focus on was Dad, standing between me and Lorraine's trembling gun. "Move, Calvin," Lorraine said, her perfectly manicured fingers steady on the trigger. "This isn't about you." "That's where you're wrong," he replied. "It's always been about me. My weakness. My choices." A siren wailed in the distance. Lorraine's eyes darted to the window, then back to us. "We're leaving. All of us. Now." She gestured toward the back door with the gun. Dad started to protest, but I grabbed his arm. "Do what she says." Outside, the evening air felt thick with tension. Lorraine directed us to her car, keeping the gun partially concealed but ever present. "Get in," she ordered. "We're going home." Home. The word felt like poison. As we drove, I watched the familiar streets blur past, each turn bringing us closer to the house where everything had fallen apart. Dad sat rigid beside me in the back seat, his hand finding mine in the darkness. "I should have read that letter," he whispered. "Should have trusted Claire." "Quiet," Lorraine snapped, but her voice cracked. "You have no idea what I've sacrificed for this family." "Family?" The word escaped me before I could stop it. "You destroyed our family. You killed my mother." The car swerved sharply, then steadied. "Your mother was going to ruin everything. She found the records, started asking questions about Margaret and Thomas." "Your other husbands," Dad said quietly. "The ones who died." Lorraine's laugh was brittle. "They were weak.
Sick.
Just like Claire. I simply helped nature take its course." We pulled into the driveway of my childhood home. The roses were long gone, replaced by perfectly manicured shrubs. Sterile. Controlled. Just like everything in Lorraine's world. "Inside," she commanded. The house smelled different. No more cinnamon and old books like Aita's. This place smelled of artificial lavender and fear. Family photos lined the walls, carefully curated to show the perfect family. Me, conspicuously absent. "Sit down." Lorraine gestured to the living room couch. "We're going to fix this. All of it."
How?
I asked. "By killing us too?" "Don't be dramatic," she scoffed, but her hand tightened on the gun. "We just need to understand each other." I did what was necessary.
Claire was weak.
She would have dragged Calvin down with her illness, her neediness. I made it quick, painless. I saved this family. Dad's face crumpled. "You didn't save us. You destroyed us." A noise from the kitchen made us all freeze. Lorraine spun around, gun raised, just as Helen stepped into view, holding a familiar-looking file. "Looking for this?" Helen asked, holding up my mother's medical records. "I made copies. They're already with the police." Lorraine's composure finally shattered. The gun wavered between Helen and us, her perfect mask cracking to reveal the desperate woman beneath. "You don't understand," she pleaded, tears streaming down her face. "I had nothing before this. No family, no security. I built this life. I earned it. By killing innocent people?" I stood up, ignoring Dad's attempt to pull me back. "By destroying families? I made them better." Lorraine screamed. "Stronger? Without the weak ones holding them back." The gun swung toward me. In that moment, I saw something I'd never noticed before, fear in Lorraine's eyes. Not of being caught, but of being abandoned, of being weak. "You're right," I said softly. "Weak people do destroy families." Her finger tightened on the trigger just as police sirens filled the air outside. Red and blue lights flooded through the windows, casting strange shadows across Lorraine's face. "That's why you have to destroy everything," I continued. "Because you're the weakest one of all." The gun fired just as Dad lunged forward, and my world exploded into chaos once again. The gunshot echoed through the house as Dad slammed into me, knocking us both to the floor. Pain exploded in my shoulder, hot and sharp. Through the haze, I heard screaming, Helen's voice, police sirens, Lorraine's hysterical laughter. "You see," Lorraine shouted over the chaos. "He chose me again, just like always." But Dad was pressing his hands against my wound, his tears falling onto my face.
I'm so sorry, Tessa.
God, I'm so sorry. The room spun with red and blue lights as officers burst through the doors. Someone knocked the gun from Lorraine's hand, but she kept laughing, that horrible, broken sound that had haunted my teenage years. She'll never forgive you now, Calvin. Lorraine called as they handcuffed her. Just like Claire never did. The paramedics arrived, their voices distant and professional as they worked on my shoulder. Through the pain, I caught fragments of conversation. Through and through, lucky, hospital. But all I could focus on was Dad's face, aged decades and minutes, and the envelope that had fallen from his pocket during the chaos. Mom's last letter. Read it, I whispered as they lifted me onto the stretcher. Please. His hands shook as he opened the envelope, yellowed with 15 years of waiting. As he read, his face crumpled. Claire knew, he choked out. She knew what Lorraine was doing with her medication. She tried to tell me, but I didn't want to believe someone I loved could be capable of. Like father, like daughter. I said, the words bitter in my mouth. The paramedics started moving me toward the ambulance. Dad tried to follow, but I turned away.
Don't.
Just
Don't.
Tessa, please. You had 15 years to choose me, I said, fighting against the darkness creeping into my vision. 15 years to read that letter, to face the truth, but you were too weak. Helen appeared beside the stretcher, her face grim. I'll ride with her. As they loaded me into the ambulance, I caught one last glimpse of my childhood home. Lorraine in the back of a police car, still laughing. Dad standing in the doorway, clutching Mom's letter, looking lost. The perfect family photos visible through the window, mocking everything we'd become. The pain medication kicked in during the ride, making everything fuzzy. Helen held my hand, talking softly about evidence and trials, about justice finally being served. But justice felt hollow now. Mom was still dead. Dad was still a coward. And I had a bullet hole where my anger used to live. We got her, Helen said. It's over. But it wasn't over. The physical wound would heal, but the rest, the betrayal, the lost years. The knowledge that Dad had chosen willful ignorance over protecting his own daughter, that would never heal cleanly. In the emergency room, as doctors worked to repair the damage, I drifted in and out of consciousness. Each time I surfaced, I heard different voices, Etta praying softly, Helen talking to police officers, Dad begging to see me. She doesn't want visitors, a nurse said firmly. I'm her father. That's not what her medical records show. According to these, she removed you as next of kin 15 years ago. Another voice cut through the haze, Lorraine's lawyer, speaking to reporters outside my room. My client has a documented history of mental illness. The deaths of her previous husbands were thoroughly investigated. I wanted to scream, to tell them about Mom's letters, about the medical records, about years of calculated manipulation. But the words wouldn't come. The truth felt trapped inside me, like the bullet they'd just removed. A detective appeared, wanting a statement. Helen tried to intervene, but I forced myself to speak. Why did she do it? I asked. All of it. The detective's face softened. Some people can't bear to be alone. They'd rather destroy a family than risk being abandoned by one. As morphine pulled me under again, I realized that's exactly what I'd been doing too, destroying myself to prove I didn't need the family that abandoned me. And now, lying in a hospital bed with a bullet wound for my stepmother and a heart wound for my father, I never felt more alone. 3 weeks after the shooting, I sat across from Lorraine in a prison visiting room. She looked smaller without her designer clothes and perfect makeup, but her eyes still held that calculating gleam. I didn't expect you to come, she said, hands folded neatly on the metal table. Hoping for an apology? I want to understand. The wound in my shoulder throbbed, a constant reminder of what brought us here. Was any of it real? Did you ever care about Dad? Or was he just another mark? Her smile faltered. Your father was different. He loved so completely, so blindly. It made him perfect, until you started asking questions. Like Mom did. Claire was weak. Lorraine snapped, then caught herself. She would have dragged him down with her illness, her neediness. I saved him from that. By killing her? By setting him free. Lorraine leaned forward. You don't understand what it's like. Always being temporary. Disposable. I made myself necessary. I made myself family. By destroying other families. I improved them. Removed the weak links. Her voice cracked slightly. My own mother taught me that. Nobody wants a burden, she'd say. So, I learned to be useful. Necessary. Perfect. The truth hit me like another bullet. You were scared. All this time, you were just terrified of being abandoned. Lorraine's mask slipped completely. Everyone leaves. Unless you give them a reason to stay. Unless you make yourself indispensable. But they didn't stay, did they? Your other husbands? My father? Your father chose me, she snarled. Over and over. He chose me. No. Dad's voice came from behind me. I hadn't told him I was coming, but somehow he'd known. I chose fear. I chose denial. Because facing the truth meant facing my own cowardice. Lorraine's eyes widened. Calvin, I read Claire's letter, he continued, sitting beside me. All of it. About how she discovered what you were doing. About how she begged me to listen. I chose not to see it because seeing it meant admitting I'd brought a monster into our home. I saved you, Lorraine whispered. I saved us. You destroyed us, I said. And now you're going to spend the rest of your life alone. The very thing you feared most. Lorraine lunged across the table, her fingers clawing for my throat. Guards rushed in, restraining her as she screamed. You're just like her.
Weak.
Pathetic. You'll die alone too. As they drag her away, I saw something I'd never noticed before. A small scar on her wrist, old and faded. The kind you get from handcuffs. She was 12 when her mother abandoned her, Dad said quietly. Left her chained to a radiator for 3 days. I found the records after everything. That doesn't excuse what she did. No, he agreed. But it explains it. We're all shaped by our wounds, Tessa. The question is whether we let them make us stronger or turn us into monsters. I looked at him, really looked at him, for the first time in 15 years. The guilt in his eyes, the grief, the desperate hope for redemption. I'm not ready to forgive you, I said. But I'm ready to stop letting this destroy me. Through the window, we could still hear Lorraine screaming. About family, about weakness, about love and betrayal. But her words had lost their power. They were just the echoes of a wounded child who'd learned the wrong lessons about survival. Mom's roses, I said suddenly. The ones Lorraine paved over. They're still there, aren't they? Under the driveway. Dad nodded. Nothing that's strong really dies. It just waits for the right moment to bloom again. As we left the prison, I felt something shift inside me. The wound in my shoulder would leave a scar, but scars were just reminders of what hadn't killed us, of what we'd survived. And sometimes, surviving was its own form of revenge. 6 months after Lorraine's conviction, I stood in my grandmother's garden, helping her plant new roses. The trial had ended with multiple life sentences, not just for Mom's death, but for 3 other murders spanning 2 decades. Justice, they called it. But justice felt different than I'd imagined. Your mother loved these yellow ones best, Etta said, patting the soil around a fresh planting. Said they reminded her of sunshine after rain. Dad appeared at the garden gate, hesitant. He'd been showing up like this lately, not pushing, just being present. Today, he carried a familiar wooden box. Found this while clearing out the house, he said. There's one more letter we haven't read. The house, my childhood home, was being sold. Dad had decided to donate the proceeds to a domestic violence shelter, a choice that felt like the first real step toward redemption. Inside the box was a letter dated the day before Mom died, but it wasn't addressed to me or Dad. It was to Lorraine. Dear Lorraine, I read aloud. By the time you read this, I'll be gone. Not because of your manipulation of my medication, though I know about that. I'm choosing to go on my terms, leaving you with the one thing you fear most, the truth about yourself. Etta and Dad moved closer as I continued reading. You think you've won, that you'll finally have the family you desperately want. But you'll never keep them. Not because they'll leave you, but because you'll destroy them first. Your fear of abandonment will become a self-fulfilling prophecy. This letter is my gift to you, the understanding you never wanted to face. My hands shook. She chose to die? To protect you, Etta said softly. She knew Lorraine would be careful with her next victim after a suspicious death. Knew she'd take years to strike again. Years that would give you time to grow strong enough to face this. She sacrificed herself to give me a chance, I whispered. Dad wiped his eyes. Claire always was the strongest of us all. Helen appeared at the garden gate, carrying case files. She'd retired from teaching, now working as a victim's advocate. They're reopening 3 more cases, she said. Lorraine's past is unraveling. I looked at the yellow roses, their faces turned toward the sun. Mom had known the truth about strength. It wasn't about revenge or justice. It was about protecting what mattered, even if that meant letting go. There's something else, Dad said, pulling out an old photograph. Mom and I in the garden, surrounded by roses, both laughing. But in the background, partially hidden, was a young woman I'd never noticed before. She had Lorraine's eyes. Her sister, Helen explained, died under mysterious circumstances when Lorraine was 20. The case that started it all. The final piece clicked into place. Lorraine hadn't just been afraid of abandonment. She'd been trying to prevent it, eliminating anyone who might leave her first. A twisted kind of protection that had consumed her. What do we do with all this? I asked, gesturing to the letters, the photos, the weight of understanding. We plant roses, Etta said simply. We grow something beautiful from the ashes. Dad picked up a shovel. Together? I looked at him, really looked at him. The man who'd failed me, who'd chosen blindness over truth, who was finally learning to see. Not healed, but healing. Like the garden. Like me. Together, I agreed. As we worked, I thought about Mom's final gift, not just time to grow stronger, but the understanding that true strength comes in many forms. Sometimes it's confronting the truth. Sometimes it's choosing forgiveness. And sometimes it's simply planting roses, knowing that beauty can bloom even in soil stained by tragedy. Later, I found one last note tucked inside the photograph. Mom's handwriting, faded but clear. Remember, sweetheart, the thorns protect the roses, but they don't define them. I tucked the note away and kept digging, making space for new growth in soil that had known both love and pain. Above us, the yellow roses turned their faces to the sun, reaching always toward the light. I never thought a single letter could change everything, but there it was, yellowed and brittle, tucked between pages 143 and 144 of Great Expectations, a book I'd shelved hundreds of times at Monroe Public Library without noticing anything unusual. My name is Sadie, and until that Tuesday afternoon, my life was as quiet as the library where I worked. The letter trembled in my hands as I unfolded it, the paper so delicate, I feared it might crumble. My dearest Elizabeth, it began in elegant cursive. What we've done cannot be undone, but the Langstons must never know the truth. The money is yours. Use it wisely and keep our secret safe. Forever yours, HL. The date at the bottom read April 15, 1992, exactly 1 month before I was born. I might have dismissed it as just another forgotten bookmark if I hadn't heard that name, Langston, whispered among the library trustees just yesterday. They'd mentioned a substantial donation coming our way from the Langston family. Excuse me, is someone available to help?
The voice startled me.
I quickly tucked the letter into my cardigan pocket and turned around. A man stood at the reference desk, impeccably dressed in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than my monthly salary. His presence commanded attention, but it was his eyes that caught me off guard, sharp and calculating, despite his warm smile. Of course, I said, straightening my glasses. How can I help? Preston Langston. He introduced himself, extending his hand. I'm looking for any records you might have about local property ownership from the early 1990s. My heart skipped. The letter in my pocket suddenly felt like it was burning through the wool of my cardigan. The 1990s. I managed to keep my voice steady. That's quite specific. Family research, he said, leaning slightly on the desk. My father's particularly interested in a property that belonged to someone named Elizabeth Monroe. I froze. Elizabeth Monroe was my grandmother's name. Monroe? I echoed, trying to sound casual. That's actually my last name. His smile widened, but something flickered in his eyes. Is that right? What a fascinating coincidence. The way he said coincidence made me wonder if it was anything but. The property records are in the basement archives, I said. I can help you look them up, but it might take some time. Time is something I have plenty of, Preston replied, checking his expensive watch, especially for matters of family history. As I led him toward the archive stairs, I could feel his eyes on my back. The letter felt heavier with each step. My grandmother had passed away 5 years ago, taking whatever secrets she had to her grave. Or so I'd thought. After you. Preston gestured at the door, still smiling that perfect smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. The basement archives were my sanctuary, a place where I spent countless hours organizing and cataloging. But today, descending those familiar stairs with Preston Langston behind me, it felt more like walking into a trap. You know, he said casually as we reached the bottom, my mother always says there's no such thing as coincidence. Everything happens for a reason. I thought about the letter in my pocket, about my grandmother Elizabeth, and about the Langston name that suddenly seemed to be everywhere. And what do you believe, Mr. Langston? He paused, studying me with those calculating eyes. I believe some secrets refuse to stay buried, Miss Monroe. Don't you? In that moment, standing in the dim archive basement with a man who seemed to know more than he was saying, I realized my quiet life was about to become anything but. The Langston mansion loomed before me like something out of a Gothic novel, all stone and shadows in the fading evening light. I smoothed my department store dress, already regretting my decision to accept Preston's dinner invitation. The letter from the library still burned in my apartment safe, but its contents haunted my thoughts as I rang the doorbell. Preston answered with that same calculated smile. Sadie, you look lovely. He kissed my cheek, his cologne expensive and subtle. Though I must warn you, my mother's been in quite a state about meeting you. Should I be worried? I tried to joke, but my voice wavered. Just be yourself, he said, leading me inside. That's what drew me to you in the first place. The grand foyer opened into a living room where Vivian Langston perched on an antique settee, a glass of wine held delicately in her manicured hands. Her husband Harold stood by the fireplace, his posture rigid as a soldier's. So this is the librarian, Vivian said, her tone making my profession sound like a curious affliction. Preston tells us you're quite resourceful. I caught the slight emphasis on that last word. The library has been my second home since childhood. My grandmother used to say, Monroe, did you say your name was? Harold interrupted, turning from the fireplace. Any relation to Elizabeth Monroe? My heart stuttered. She was my grandmother. Was. Vivian's eyebrows arched. Such a shame. When did she pass? 5 years ago. I accepted the wine Preston offered, grateful for something to do with my hands. Did you know her? This town has quite a long memory, dear, Vivian replied. Old families tend to cross paths. The butler announced dinner before I could press further. As we moved to the dining room, I noticed Preston's hand at the small of my back, gentle but possessive. The meal was elaborate, 5 courses of food I could barely pronounce. Between bites of something involving truffle oil, Vivian steered the conversation toward Preston's recent business successes. The Monroe Street development is finally moving forward, she announced, watching me over the rim of her wine glass. That old neighborhood needed updating, don't you think? I nearly choked on my wine. Monroe Street? That's where my grandmother's house is. Was dear, Harold corrected. The property's been acquired for redevelopment. Surely you knew.
No.
I set down my fork. The house is still in my grandmother's name. I have the deed. An uncomfortable silence fell over the table. Preston's hand found my knee under the tablecloth, squeezing gently. Warning or reassurance? I couldn't tell. Legal oversights can be so tedious, Vivian sighed. Preston, Darling, perhaps you could help Sadie understand the situation better? Mother. Preston's voice carried an edge I hadn't heard before. This isn't the time. When is the time, son? Harold's question cracked like a whip. Some matters require decisive action. I pushed my chair back, the screech of wood on marble startling everyone. Excuse me, I need some air. I found myself in a hallway lined with family portraits. Generations of Langstons stared down at me with familiar calculating eyes. The last photo showed a younger Harold with a woman who wasn't Vivian. The date caught my eye, 1992. They're quite something, aren't they? Preston's voice made me jump. The family portraits. Mother insists on updating them yearly. Why didn't you tell me about my grandmother's house? He stepped closer, his presence both comforting and threatening. Business is complicated, Sadie. Sometimes things get messy before they get better. Better for whom? Before he could answer, Vivian's voice floated down the hallway. Preston, dear, your father needs you in his study. He touched my cheek, his fingers warm against my skin. We'll figure this out. Trust me. As I watched him walk away, I remembered the letter in my safe and my grandmother's words from long ago. The Langstons take what they want. Sweet girl. They always have. I pulled out my phone and typed a quick message to my old friend Fiona. I need your help. Something's not right with the Langstons. The reply came instantly. About time you noticed. Come over tomorrow. There's something you need to see. Fiona's apartment felt like stepping into another world after 3 months of being immersed in Preston's. No crystal chandeliers or Persian rugs here, just mismatched furniture and walls covered in protest posters. She handed me a coffee mug that read, "Well-behaved women rarely make history." You're not going to believe what I found, she said, pulling out a worn leather journal. Remember that internship I did at the Historical Society? This was in their restricted archives. The journal belonged to someone named Margaret Langston, Preston's aunt. The same aunt who'd mysteriously vanished in 1992, according to town gossip. Read the last entry, Fiona urged. My hands shook as I opened to the marked page. Vivian's gotten exactly what she wanted. Harold's choosing her over family loyalty. I can't stay silent about what they did to Elizabeth, but they've made it clear what happens to people who cross them. I'm leaving tonight. If anything happens to me, the entry ended there. Elizabeth. I whispered. My grandmother? Before Fiona could respond, my phone buzzed. Preston's name lit up the screen, along with a photo of the massive diamond ring he'd given me last week. The engagement still felt surreal. Aren't you going to answer it? Fiona asked. I let it go to voicemail. What happened to Margaret Langston? That's the thing, nobody knows. The police ruled it a voluntary disappearance, but Fiona hesitated. The Historical Society has records of large payments made to the investigating officer's family that same year. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Vivian. Darling, we simply must discuss the engagement party. The governor's already RSVP'd. You need to be careful, Fiona warned. The Langstons don't just build properties. They build narratives. They bury inconvenient truths under layers of money and influence. Like they tried to bury whatever happened with my grandmother? The pieces were starting to fit together. The letter, the house, Margaret's journal. A knock at the door made us both jump. Through the peephole, I saw Preston in his perfectly tailored suit, looking concerned. Sadie? I know you're in there. Mother's worried sick. I opened the door, but blocked his entry. Did you know about your Aunt Margaret's journal? His face went pale. Where did you? Did you know what your parents did to my grandmother? It's complicated, he said, reaching for my hand. Family matters always are, but we can make this right. Together. Like you're making right what happened to my grandmother's house? That development project will benefit the whole community, he insisted. Sometimes progress requires sacrifice. Whose sacrifice, Preston? Margaret's? My grandmother's? Mine? His expression hardened. Don't throw away everything we could have together over ancient history. Ancient history? I pulled out my grandmother's letter from my purse. This history isn't as ancient as you think. Recognition flashed in his eyes. Where did you get that? Does it matter? What matters is what's in it, what your father did, what your mother covered up. Preston stepped closer, his voice dropping. Sadie, please. We can work this out. I love you.
Do you?
Or do you love the story you've created about us, the charitable heir and the grateful librarian? You're upset. Let me take you home. I am home, I said, stepping back into Fiona's apartment, with people who tell me the truth. Don't do this, he warned. Mother won't. Won't what? Arrange another convenient disappearance. The words hung between us like a drawn weapon. Preston's face showed real fear for the first time. You don't understand what you're dealing with, he said quietly. No, but I'm starting to. I slipped off the engagement ring and pressed it into his hand. Tell your mother I'll be keeping my grandmother's house. And if anything happens to me or Fiona, Margaret's journal goes public. As I closed the door on Preston's stunned face, Fiona whispered, Holy shit. My hands were shaking, but my voice was steady. We need to make copies of that journal. Lots of copies. The truth about the Langstons was finally coming to light, and I had a feeling this was just the beginning. The migraine hit me like a freight train 3 days after I returned Margaret's journal to Fiona for safekeeping. My vision blurred, and the library's fluorescent lights became daggers. I barely made it to the bathroom before throwing up. You look like death warmed over, my coworker said when I emerged. There's someone waiting for you at the reference desk. Harold Langston stood there, examining our rare books display with calculated interest. My stomach lurched again, but not from the migraine. Miss Monroe, he said, not looking up. I believe we need to discuss some property matters. I have nothing to say about my grandmother's house. No. He finally turned, his eyes cold. What about your medical records? The room tilted slightly. What? Terrible thing, those hereditary conditions. Your mother had similar symptoms before her accident, didn't she? Headaches, vision problems. He picked up a book, thumbed through it. The Langston Family Foundation funds several excellent neurological research facilities. The threat was clear as crystal. Is that what happened to Margaret? My voice shook. Did she have symptoms too? His expression didn't change, but his knuckles whitened around the book. My sister made unfortunate choices. Don't follow her path. My phone buzzed, Fiona. 911. Storage unit broken into. Journal's gone. The room spun faster. I grabbed the desk to steady myself. Harold said, watching my reaction. Bad news travels fast. Perhaps we should continue this discussion somewhere private? Actually, a new voice cut in. She's coming with me. Marissa Green, director of the women's shelter where Fiona volunteered, stood in the doorway. I'd never been so glad to see anyone in my life. This is a private matter, Harold said smoothly. Nothing's private in a public library, Marissa countered. Sadie, grab your things. You're taking sick leave. Harold's mask slipped for just a moment. Miss Monroe works for the library board. The Langston family. The library board reports to the city council. Marissa interrupted. Where, coincidentally, I just filed some very interesting historical documents. Insurance, you might say. I didn't miss Harold's flinch. My hands trembled as I gathered my purse. The migraine pulsed behind my eyes, but I forced myself to stand straight. Your father's journal, I said quietly. Margaret wasn't the only one who kept records, was she? The color drained from Harold's face. Marissa's hand found my elbow, steering me toward the door. The shelter has excellent security cameras, she said over her shoulder, and backup generators, just in case of power outages. In Marissa's car, I finally let myself shake apart. They took the journal. They'll destroy it. They took a journal, Marissa corrected, handing me a bottle of water and some pills. Not the copies Fiona and I distributed to very specific people last week. I stared at her. You knew this would happen? Honey, I've been watching the Langstons destroy lives for 20 years. Your grandmother was one of our first shelter residents, back when we opened. The pills stuck in my throat. What? She stayed 3 months. Then suddenly she had money, a house. Marissa's grip tightened on the steering wheel, and a promise to keep quiet about Harold's first wife.
My phone buzzed again.
Preston, Please let me help you. Not everything is what it seems. Another message followed. Check your grandmother's house. Back garden, under the rose trellis. Trust me one last time. We need to go to Monroe Street, I told Marissa. She studied me in the rearview mirror. You sure that's wise? I thought about Margaret's journal, about my grandmother's silence, about the headaches that had plagued my mother before her accident. No, I admitted, but I'm done being afraid. Marissa nodded, turning the car toward my grandmother's house. Sometimes the only way past fear is through it. My phone buzzed one final time. Vivian, you're playing a dangerous game, dear. Remember, some secrets are better left buried. Like Margaret? Like my mother? Like my grandmother's truth, waiting under the roses? I turned off my phone. Whatever we found in that garden would change everything. I just hoped I was strong enough to face it. The metal box we unearthed from my grandmother's rose garden was small enough to fit in my hands, but heavy with secrets. My fingers trembled as I brushed away decades of dirt, revealing a familiar name etched into the lid. Margaret Langston. We should open it somewhere safe, Marissa warned, scanning the overgrown yard. A car door slammed nearby. Preston emerged from the shadows, his usual polish replaced by desperate dishevelment. Wait, he called out. There's something you need to know first. Marissa stepped between us. That's close enough. It's about Margaret, Preston said, stopping short. And your mother's accident. The box grew heavier in my hands. You mean her murder? Yes. His admission hung in the evening air. But not by who you think. Headlights swept across the garden. A black SUV pulled up, and Vivian stepped out, elegant as ever in her designer suit. Preston, darling, she called. Your father's waiting at home. This little treasure hunt is over. Tell her, I demanded, clutching the box tighter. Tell her what you just told me. Preston looked between us, years of conditioning warring with conscience on his face. Margaret wasn't father's victim, he finally said. She was mother's. Vivian's laugh cut through the tension.
Oh, sweetheart.
Have you been drinking again? We all know what the stress does to you. I found her journals, Preston continued. The real ones. Hidden in the lake house. Preston. Vivian's voice turned sharp. Remember what happened last time you had these episodes? Like my mother's episodes? I challenged. Before her car's brake lines mysteriously failed? Such imagination, Vivian sighed. No wonder my son was drawn to you. He always did have a weakness for dramatic women. Like Margaret, I took a step forward. Is that why she had to disappear? Because she knew about you and Harold, about what really happened to his first wife. Something dangerous flashed in Vivian's eyes. Careful, dear. Some questions are better left unasked. Mother, Preston's voice cracked. I can't keep lying. Not after what you made me do to Sadie's grandmother. The world tilted. What? I was 17, he said. Mother told me Elizabeth Monroe was threatening our family, that if I didn't convince her to take the money and stay quiet, father would go to prison. And now history repeats itself, Vivian mused, reaching into her purse. Though I must say, Preston, you're being far less cooperative this time. The gun she pulled out looked absurdly small in her manicured hands. Mother, don't. Hush, darling. Sometimes a mother has to clean up her children's messes. I clutched Margaret's box like a shield. Everything's already documented. Copies of the journals, letters, photos. All safely distributed. To whom? Vivian's aim didn't waver. That passionate friend of yours? The shelter director? Amazing how many tragic accidents can happen in a small town. You won't get away with this, Marissa said, her phone visible in her raised hands. Everything's being recorded. Vivian's smile turned predatory. Do you really think that matters? Money doesn't just buy silence, it buys truth. A police siren wailed in the distance. Vivian's composure cracked for just a moment. Last chance, Sadie dear. Hand over the box, sign over the house, and this all goes away. You can even keep Preston, though he clearly needs another stint in rehabilitation first. I looked at Preston, saw the years of manipulation written in his haunted eyes. Thought of my grandmother's silence, my mother's death, Margaret's disappearance. All those broken women, buried under Langston money and power. The siren grew closer. I opened the box. Inside lay a USB drive, photos, and a handwritten confession, Margaret's insurance policy, hidden by my grandmother all these years. No more deals, I said, my voice stronger than I felt. No more silence. Vivian's finger tightened on the trigger. Such a shame. You really would have made a lovely daughter-in-law. The garden exploded in red and blue lights as police cars surrounded the house. Some secrets refused to stay buried. And some roses bloom best in blood-soaked soil. The interrogation room felt colder than it should in August. Detective Mills slid crime scene photos across the table. Vivian sprawled in my grandmother's rose garden, red blooming across her designer blouse. The gun that had been in her hands now sat in an evidence bag, my fingerprints all over it. Just tell me again what happened after the struggle, Mills said, his pen hovering over his notepad. My court-appointed lawyer touched my arm. My client has already explained that Vivian Langston shot herself? Mills interrupted. Convenient story, considering your history with the family. Through the two-way mirror, I sensed others watching. Probably Harold, his army of lawyers already spinning this into another tragic accident. Like my mother's. Like Margaret's. The recording, I started. Corrupted, Mills cut in. And Miss Green's phone mysteriously malfunctioned. Technology, right? Of course it did. Langston money could buy anything, even digital silence. The door opened. Preston walked in, looking expensive and exhausted. My heart twisted despite everything. I need to speak with Miss Monroe, he said. Alone. Mills hesitated. Mr. Langston, given the circumstances. My father's lawyers are handling the paperwork now. Preston's voice carried that familiar weight of inherited authority. 5 minutes. Everyone filed out. Preston sat across from me, close enough to touch, far enough to hurt. They're dropping the charges, he said quietly. Just like that. Father's calling it a tragic accident. Mother's history of mental instability, the stress of recent events. He rubbed his face. The family name must be protected, after all. And Margaret's evidence? The USB drive. Missing from the scene, along with the box. Of course. I laughed, the sound brittle even to my ears. Your father works fast, Sadie. Preston reached for my hand. I pulled away. You can still walk away from this. The family's offering. More money? More silence. The words tasted like ashes. Like what you offer my grandmother? He flinched. I was 17.
Scared.
Mother said. You're not 17 anymore, Preston. The silence stretched between us, heavy with unspoken truths. I found something else in the lake house, he finally said. About your father. My chest tightened. What about him? He didn't abandon you and your mother. He was going to expose everything. Mother's schemes, father's corruption. The night before he disappeared, he left evidence with his lawyer. Preston's voice dropped. The same lawyer who died in a house fire a week later. The room spun slightly. Why tell me this now? Because I'm done being their puppet. He slid a key across the table. Safety deposit box. First National. Everything you need is there. Margaret's original evidence, your father's documents, recordings of mother. He stood. I'm testifying against them, Sadie. All of it. They'll destroy you.
They already have.
His smile was sad. But maybe we can stop them from destroying anyone else. The door opened. Mills returned with Harold and 3 suits that screamed, expensive lawyer. Time to go, son, Harold said. The papers are ready. Preston straightened, that familiar mask sliding back into place. But his eyes met mine one last time, and I saw something I'd never seen before, freedom. Miss Monroe. One lawyer stepped forward. Your release papers. The family hopes you'll sign this non-disclosure agreement as well. I looked at the documents, then at Harold's carefully neutral expression. Thought about my father, my mother, my grandmother. About Margaret. About all the women whose stories ended in convenient accidents and comfortable silence. Actually, I said, I think I'll call a press conference instead. Harold's mask cracked. That would be unwise. Probably, I agreed. But I'm done being wise. I'm done being quiet. You have no evidence, he reminded me.
No witnesses. No.
She has me, Preston interrupted. And I have everything. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Harold's face hardened into something terrible. Then I hope you're both ready for war. I thought about the key in my pocket, about Marissa and Fiona waiting outside, about all the buried truths finally clawing their way to light. You know what, Mr. Langston? I stood, feeling stronger than I had in weeks. I think we are. The press conference was set for noon, but Harold Langston arrived at my grandmother's house at dawn. He stood on the porch like an undertaker, flanked by two men whose suits couldn't quite hide their shoulder holsters. We found Margaret, he said when I opened the door. My heart stopped. Where? The lake house. All these years, right under our noses. His laugh held no humor. Vivian was always theatrical that way. Preston's car pulled up behind Harold's. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. Father, don't. Quiet. Harold's command cracked like a whip. You've done enough damage. Show me, I said. The lake house sat like a forgotten memory on the water's edge. Police tape fluttered in the morning breeze. Detective Mills stood waiting, his face grim. Found her in the basement, Mills said. Behind a false wall. Along with this. He handed me a water-damaged journal. Margaret's handwriting filled the pages, along with photographs. My father appeared in several, standing next to a younger Harold. They looked like friends. Your father was my partner once, Harold said quietly, before he grew a conscience. And Margaret? Knew too much. Like your father. Like your mother.
He sighed.
Like you. Preston moved closer to me. Father, please. You were supposed to handle this, son. Like before. Instead. Harold gestured at the scene. Now everything's exposed. Our legacy destroyed. Your legacy, Preston corrected, built on buried bodies and broken lives. Harold's mask finally cracked. Everything I did for you, to give you the power, the respect. The nightmares? Preston's voice shook. The guilt? Knowing what we did to Sadie's family? What I did, I said suddenly, understanding hitting like lightning. You never sent those threatening letters to my grandmother. Preston did. Preston flinched. I was 17. Mother said if I didn't convince her to take the money, father would go to prison. The family would lose everything. And now? Harold's hand moved toward his jacket. What's your excuse now? The truth, Preston said. Finally. The gun appeared in Harold's hand, but Mills was faster. In seconds, Harold was face down, cuffs replacing his Italian leather watch. Harold Langston, Mills recited, you're under arrest for the murders of Margaret Langston, James Monroe, and Catherine Monroe. As they led Harold away, he called back, you'll never prove anything. Money talks louder than truth. Not anymore. I held up Margaret's journal. The dead have started talking back. Later, sitting on the lake house dock with Preston, I watched the sun paint the water gold. I found something else, he said, pulling out an envelope. In Margaret's things. It's addressed to you. Inside was a single photograph, my father and Margaret, standing in this same spot. On the back, in Margaret's writing, James, I'll keep her safe. The truth will come out someday. She was protecting me, I whispered. All those years, like your grandmother protected you, like you protected the truth. Preston stood. The press is waiting. Are you ready? I thought about Margaret, about my parents, about all the secrets finally surfacing like bodies in a lake. Almost. I faced Preston. Why did you really come back? After all these years. Because you reminded me of who I was before them. Before the lies. He smiled sadly. And because someone had to break the cycle. We're not them, I realized. We never were. No, he agreed. We're the ones who tell the truth. As we walked toward the waiting cameras, I felt lighter. The truth wouldn't bring back the dead, wouldn't erase the past. But it would light the way forward, like sun on dark water, showing us where the bodies lay and how to avoid making more. Sometimes the greatest revenge isn't in destroying your enemies, but in refusing to become them. 1 year later, I stood in front of my grandmother's restored Victorian, now transformed into the Monroe House Women's Shelter. The roses still bloomed in the garden where Vivian had fallen, where Margaret's truth had finally surfaced. Different flowers now, planted by different hands, but still reaching for the light. Marissa joined me on the porch, clipboard in hand. Third resident moved in today. Former Langston employee, if you can believe it. I can, I said, watching a young woman unpack her car, a child balanced on her hip. How many does that make now? Who escaped that family? Or who found safety here? Both, I suppose. The shelter had become something of a symbol in town. Harold's trial had exposed decades of corruption, abuse, and silence. When the dust settled, more women came forward. Not just from the Langstons, but from other powerful families who'd learned from their example. Fiona emerged from inside, carrying boxes of donated books. Look what just arrived from the library board. Let me guess, approved unanimously? Amazing what happens when half the board gets indicted for corruption.
She grinned.
Though Preston's testimony probably helped. Preston. His name still caught in my throat sometimes. He'd turned state's evidence, helping dismantle his family's empire piece by piece. Last I heard, he was working with advocacy groups, using his insider knowledge to expose similar patterns in other wealthy families. We hadn't spoken since the trial. Some bridges, once burned, shouldn't be rebuilt. Package came for you, Marissa said, handing me a small envelope. No return address, but I recognized the handwriting. Inside was a key and a note. The lake house is yours now. Do with it what you will.
P.
Speaking of the devil, Fiona nodded toward the street. Preston stood by his car, looking less polished than I remembered. More human. When our eyes met, he simply nodded, then drove away. That evening, I visited the lake house one last time. In the basement where they'd found Margaret, I discovered one final letter, hidden in a wall panel we'd missed before. Dear Sadie. It read in my grandmother's handwriting. If you're reading this, then Margaret's plan worked. She knew the truth would surface eventually, that you would be the one to bring it into the light. Your father believed the same. We couldn't save ourselves, but we could leave breadcrumbs for you to follow. The house is yours now, both houses. Make them places of refuge, not remembrance. Love, Grandma Elizabeth. 2 days later, we broke ground on the lake house renovation. It would become a second shelter location, focusing on longer-term housing and job training. You know, Marissa said as we watched the construction begin, revenge usually leaves people empty. But this. She gestured at the growing community around us. This feels like justice. Maybe that's the difference, I replied. Revenge looks backward, but justice looks forward. That night, I added my own letter to the collection, not hidden in walls or books, but displayed openly in the shelter's entrance hall. To those seeking refuge, this house has witnessed both darkness and light. It has held secrets and lies, but also truth and healing. Like you, it has survived. Like you, it has been transformed. Welcome home. The roses still bloom in my grandmother's garden, and sometimes, when the evening light hits them just right, I swear I can see Margaret there, and my father and my mother and all those who kept their secrets so that one day we could speak our truth. But more often, I see the future. Women finding their voices, children playing without fear, stories being rewritten. Not everyone gets justice in the way they expect. Sometimes it comes generations later, carried forward by those left behind. And sometimes, the best revenge isn't in destroying what hurt you, but in building something new from the ruins, something that ensures no one else will hurt the same way again. That's the story I choose to tell now, every day, to every woman who walks through our doors. Your pain is power, your truth has teeth, and your future is still unwritten. The whisper shouldn't have been possible. Not from inside a closed coffin. Yet there it was again, faint but unmistakable, cutting through the funeral home's artificial silence. I stood frozen, my hand clutching the rosary I'd brought to place with my granddaughter. Grammy, help. My heart stopped. That voice, Ivy's voice. I'd know it anywhere, having heard it countless times asking for bedtime stories or extra cookies. But Ivy was supposed to be dead. That's what Jasper and Delilah had told me 3 days ago, their faces painted with grief I now questioned. The whisper came again, weaker this time. I lurched forward, my arthritic fingers fumbling with the coffin's latches. They'd chosen a beautiful white casket for my 4-year-old granddaughter, with gold trim and pink silk lining. The kind of thing you'd expect from Delilah, always so concerned with appearances. The lid resisted at first, then gave way with a soft creak. I gasped. Ivy lay there, bound in her favorite purple dress, her small chest rising and falling with shallow breaths. Her eyes fluttered open, glazed but alive. "Grammy," she whispered again, reaching for me with trembling fingers. My hands shook as I lifted her out, cradling her like I had when she was an infant. She felt lighter than I remembered earlier. The funeral home's dim lighting revealed dark circles under her eyes and dried tears on her cheeks. "What did they do to you, sweetheart?" I asked, my voice barely steady. "Mommy said I had to be quiet. She said it was a game." Ivy's words slurred slightly, but I didn't like it. It was dark and scary. The front door chimed. Footsteps echoed through the building, the funeral director returning from his lunch break. I grabbed my coat from the chair and wrapped it around Ivy, my mind racing. "We couldn't stay here. Mrs. Everhart." The director's voice carried down the hallway. "Is everything all right in there?" I held Ivy closer, feeling her small heart beating against my chest. "We're fine," I called back, surprising myself with how calm I sounded. "Just saying goodbye. Take all the time you need." Ivy's fingers clutched my blouse. "Grammy, I'm scared." "Don't be, baby. Grammy's got you now." I kissed her forehead, tasting the powder they'd used to make her look dead for the viewing. My son and his wife had planned to bury their own daughter alive. The thought made my stomach turn. My phone buzzed, a text from Jasper. "Mom, where are you? The service starts in an hour." I didn't reply. Instead, I moved toward the room's side exit, grateful I'd insisted on this private viewing time. My car waited in the back lot, and I had maybe minutes before someone came looking. "We're going on a little trip," I told Ivy, trying to keep my voice steady. "But first, I need you to tell me everything. Everything about this game Mommy and Daddy made you play." Ivy's next words chilled me to the bone. They said the new baby needed more room. That heaven would be better for me. She paused, her small body trembling. But I heard them talking about the insurance money too. The pieces clicked into place. Delilah's difficult pregnancy with their son. The recent financial troubles Jasper thought he'd hidden from me. The rushed funeral arrangements. My own flesh and blood had tried to murder their daughter for money. I started the car, my mind already mapping out our next moves. They'd chosen this funeral home for its reputation of discretion. Now that same privacy would buy us the time we needed to disappear. "Rest now, sweetheart," I whispered to Ivy as she drifted off in the back seat. "Grammy's going to make everything right, and God help anyone who tried to stop me." The motel room's flickering light cast shadows across Ivy's sleeping face as my phone buzzed for the 20th time. Jasper's name flashed on the screen again. I silenced it, remembering the last conversation we'd had 3 weeks ago, before all this madness started. "Mom, you need to stop hovering," he'd said, standing in his marble kitchen, adjusting his tie with manicured fingers. "Ivy's fine. Kids get quiet sometimes." "She's not eating, Jasper." She flinches when Delilah comes near her. I'd reached for his arm, but he'd stepped away, like my touch might wrinkle his perfectly pressed suit. "You're imagining things. Delilah's an excellent mother." The memory made my hands shake as I checked Ivy's temperature. The drug they'd given her was wearing off, but she still felt too warm. I'd need to risk getting her to a doctor soon, one who wouldn't ask too many questions. My phone lit up again, this time with a text from Delilah. "Please, Viola. We're worried sick. Just tell us where you are." I almost laughed. Worried sick? After what they'd done. A knock at the door made me freeze. Through the thin walls, I heard a familiar voice. "Vi? It's Miriam. Let me in." I hesitated, then checked the peephole. Miriam Blake stood there alone, her silver hair disheveled, holding a paper bag from the pharmacy. "How did you find us?" I asked through the crack in the door. "You really think I wouldn't recognize your car at the Blue Pine Motel? I've known you 30 years. She pushed past me, setting the bag down. "The whole town's looking for you too. There's talk of kidnapping charges." "Kidnapping?" My voice cracked. "They tried to bury her alive, Miriam." "I believe you." She glanced at Ivy, her expression softening. "But you need a plan. Jasper's got the police convinced you had some kind of breakdown after Robert died. My late husband's name hit like a punch to the gut. He's using his father's death against me. He's using everything he can. Says you've been unstable, imagining conspiracies." Miriam pulled out children's Tylenol and fresh clothes from her bag. "Delilah's playing the devastated mother perfectly. You should see her performance at the hospital with the new baby." The baby? In all this chaos, I'd almost forgotten about my newborn grandson. "How is he?" "Healthy. They named him Finn." Miriam paused. "Vi, they're painting you as the villain. You need proof of what they did." Ivy stirred, whimpering in her sleep. I smoothed her hair, noting the slight bruise on her temple where they must have struck her. "Would pictures be enough?" "Maybe, but you'll need more." Miriam's eyes narrowed. "What about the funeral home? There must be paperwork, something showing they knew she was alive." The director seemed clueless. "But I remembered something. Delilah insisted on handling all the arrangements herself. Said she had a special understanding with them." "That's worth looking into." Miriam checked her watch. "I should go before someone notices my car." "But Vi." She gripped my hand. "Whatever you do, don't trust anyone else. Not even people who seem sympathetic. Money talks in this town, and Jasper's got plenty of it." After she left, I sat watching Ivy sleep, my mind racing. The bruise on her temple told one story, but we'd need more. Something concrete that would force Jasper and Delilah to face justice. My phone buzzed one final time. A text from an unknown number. "Mrs. Everhart, this is Thomas from Peaceful Rest Funeral Home. There's something you should know about your son's payment arrangements. Please call when you can." I stared at the message, hope and dread mixing in my chest. Whatever Thomas knew might be the key to saving Ivy, or the trap that would destroy us both. Thomas from the funeral home met me behind the Quick Mart at midnight, his hands shaking as he passed me a manila envelope. "Mrs. Everhart, after you left with Ivy, they came looking for these." He glanced over his shoulder. "Your son offered me money to destroy them." Inside the envelope, I found forms with Delilah's elegant signature, dated weeks before Ivy's death. Prearrangements, payment schedules, and something that made my blood freeze, a medical waiver declining standard embalming procedures. "They knew she'd be alive," I whispered. "There's more." Thomas pulled out his phone, showing me security footage. Delilah entering the funeral home 3 days before the service, carrying a small medical bag. She said it was makeup for the viewing, but the sedatives. Of course. My phone buzzed, Jasper calling again. This time, I answered. "Where's my daughter?" His voice was steel-wrapped in silk. "Which one? The one you tried to bury alive, or the one you're pretending to grieve for?" A pause. "Mom, you're not well. We can get you help." "I have the funeral home documents, Jasper. And the security footage." The silk disappeared. "If you go public with this, you'll destroy everything. The business, our reputation. You tried to murder my granddaughter." "It wasn't like that." His voice cracked slightly. "We were desperate. The company's failing. The new baby's medical bills. Delilah's father threatened to cut her off unless we produced a male heir. The insurance money would have solved everything. I thought of Robert, how proud he'd been of our son. Your father would be ashamed. Don't you dare bring him into this." Jasper's composure slipped further. "You have no idea what it's like, trying to keep everything together. Delilah's family, the social obligations, the expectations. So, you decided Ivy was expendable?" Another pause. "Where are you?" "Somewhere safe. And I'm going to make sure everyone knows what you did." "Think carefully, Mom. His voice turned cold again. Who will believe you? The grieving grandmother, traumatized by her husband's death, kidnapping her supposedly dead granddaughter? I have friends in the police department, in the DA's office. Delilah's father owns half the judges in the state. Behind me, Thomas cleared his throat. Mrs. Everhart, there's something else you should see. He handed me another document, a life insurance policy on Ivy, taken out just months after her birth. The beneficiary wasn't Jasper or Delilah. It was their unborn son. They planned this from the beginning, I said, my hands trembling. From the moment they knew they were having a boy. My phone buzzed again, a text from Miriam. Police at your house. They're calling it a kidnapping. Get out now. I have to go, I told Thomas. Will you testify if it comes to that? He nodded slowly. My daughter's Ivy's age. I couldn't live with myself if I didn't. As I drove away, another text came through, this time from Delilah. We can fix this, Viola.
Come home.
Bring Ivy. We'll say it was all a misunderstanding. I deleted it without responding. They'd underestimated me, thought I'd be too weak, too proper to fight back. But they'd forgotten something crucial. A grandmother's love is fiercer than any social obligation or financial pressure. In the rearview mirror, I saw police lights in the distance. They were coming, but I had what I needed now. Evidence, an ally, and most importantly, the truth about how long they'd been planning this. Ivy stirred in the back seat. Grammy, where are we going? Somewhere safe, sweetheart. And this time, we're going to make sure everyone knows exactly what Mommy and Daddy did. The truth would come out, even if it burned our family's perfect facade to the ground. Miriam's cabin sat deep in the woods, far from cell service and prying eyes. As I helped Ivy settle into the spare bedroom, my friend's expression darkened. The police searched my house this morning, she said, closing the bedroom door. Delilah's father was with them. That man gives me chills. Maxwell Monroe. The name tasted bitter. What did they want? To remind me that helping fugitives is a federal crime. Miriam's hands trembled as she poured coffee. Vi, there's something else. They're saying Robert's death wasn't an accident. The mug slipped from my grip, shattering on the floor. My husband's car accident had happened 6 months ago, just after he'd discovered discrepancies in Jasper's company accounts. They're suggesting I killed Robert and kidnapped Ivy because I'm unstable. The pieces clicked together with horrifying clarity. They're trying to discredit me before I can expose them. A small voice came from the bedroom. Grammy, I'm thirsty. I started to move, but Miriam caught my arm. There's a detective asking questions about Robert's brake lines. They're building a case against you. Through the bedroom door, I could hear Ivy humming the lullaby I used to sing her. The same one I'd sung to Jasper as a baby. They won't stop until they destroy us both. Then destroy them first. Miriam pulled out her laptop. Remember that notebook you mentioned? The one with their plans? It's in Jasper's study. But the police are watching your house, yes. But not mine. She smiled grimly. And they don't know about Thomas from the funeral home. Or the security footage. A knock at the front door made us freeze. Through the window, I glimpsed a familiar car. Maxwell Monroe's silver Bentley. Back door, Miriam whispered. My car's ready. Take Ivy and... The door burst open. Maxwell stood there, his expensive suit immaculate, 2 police officers behind him. Viola. His smile never reached his eyes. You've caused quite a mess. How did you find us? He gestured to Miriam, who wouldn't meet my gaze. Everyone has a price. Even old friends. My heart stopped. Miriam. I'm sorry, Vi. Tears streaked her face. They threatened my grandson's custody case. I had no choice. Maxwell stepped closer. Where are the funeral home documents? Safe. I backed toward Ivy's room. Like the evidence about Robert's brake lines? His smile faltered slightly. Careful, Viola. Grief can make people imagine terrible things. Grammy? Ivy appeared in the doorway, clutching her stuffed rabbit. I don't feel good. The room spun as I noticed the empty medicine cup by Miriam's coffee pot. What did you give her? Just something to help her sleep, Miriam whispered. They promised they wouldn't hurt her. I caught Ivy as she stumbled, her small body burning with fever. Maxwell watched with cold calculation. You can't fight this, Viola. The police, the courts, they'll believe what we tell them. But there's another way. He pulled out his phone. Sign custody of both children over to Jasper and Delilah. Admit to your breakdown. We'll ensure you get treatment instead of prison. Ivy grew heavier in my arms, her breathing shallow. Whatever they'd given her was more than a sleeping pill. She needs a doctor, I pleaded. Sign the papers first. In that moment, I saw what I'd been missing. This wasn't just about money or social standing. This was about power, the power to break people, to make them bend. I thought of Robert, of his final phone call about the company's books, of Jasper's desperate ambition and Delilah's perfect facade. I'll sign, I said, watching Maxwell's triumphant smile. But first, let me tell you about the evidence I mailed to the FBI this morning. The smile vanished. Behind him, one of the officers shifted uncomfortably, and I realized the game wasn't over yet. It was just beginning. The emergency room's fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows as doctors worked on Ivy. I sat in the waiting room, Maxwell's words echoing in my head. The FBI won't find anything, but they might find Robert's real killer. Officer Sarachin approached, her badge glinting. She'd been one of the officers at Miriam's cabin, but something in her expression had changed. Mrs. Everhart. She sat beside me, keeping her voice low. I pulled the brake line report from your husband's accident. The cut was professional, not random. I gripped the armrest. Why are you telling me this? Because Maxwell Monroe made 3 calls to a burner phone the day before Mr. Everhart died. She glanced around. And because my sister lost custody of her kids to her wealthy ex-husband last year. Money talks in this town, but sometimes it says too much. The treatment room door opened. The doctor approached, his face grave. The sedative was mixed with something else. We're still running tests, but... My phone buzzed. Jasper. How's my daughter? I stepped away to answer. You mean the one you tried to kill, or the one you're poisoning now? Mom, stop being dramatic. Ivy just had a bad reaction to some medicine. His voice wavered slightly. Sign the custody papers. Let us fix this. Like you fixed Robert's brake lines? A long pause. Dad's death was an accident. Was it? Or did he find something in those company books? You don't understand what's at stake. Jasper's composure cracked. Delilah's father. He owns everything. The company, the house, our future. We just needed to give him what he wanted. A grandson instead of a granddaughter? Mom, please. He's watching the hospital. If you don't sign those papers. The line went dead. Officer Chin appeared beside me, her expression urgent. Mrs. Everhart, Maxwell just entered the building. And he's not alone. Through the emergency room windows, I saw Delilah getting out of a car, cradling baby Finn. Her perfect makeup couldn't hide her red-rimmed eyes. Your daughter-in-law looks scared, Chin observed. She should be. I watched Delilah hurry inside. She just had a baby, and her father's willing to poison a 4-year-old. Mrs. Everhart. The doctor returned. Ivy's asking for you. And he hesitated. She's saying something about a notebook under Daddy's desk. Suddenly, Delilah's fear made sense. The notebook I'd mentioned to Maxwell, the one I hadn't actually sent to the FBI, must still be in Jasper's study. And it contained more than just their plans for Ivy. Officer Chun, I need a favor. I pulled out my phone, showing her Thomas's security footage. Get this to someone we can trust. And keep Maxwell away from Ivy's room for 10 minutes. She nodded, understanding. What about your daughter-in-law? I watched Delilah pacing near the entrance, clutching Finn like a shield. Send her to me. It's time she chose between her father and her children. The hospital intercom crackled. Code blue. Pediatric emergency. Medical staff rushed past as Chin slipped away, leaving me alone with my decision. In Ivy's room, monitors beeped steadily. She looked so small in the hospital bed, her favorite rabbit clutched tight. On the chair beside her lay Delilah's designer handbag, forgotten in her rush to get help. Inside, I found her phone unlocked. On the screen, A draft email to the FBI sat unsent, detailing everything: Robert's murder, the insurance fraud, Maxwell's corporate crimes. Footsteps approached. I had seconds to decide: delete the evidence of Delilah's almost betrayal, or use it to drive the final wedge between father and daughter. The door opened. Delilah entered Ivy's hospital room alone, Finn cradled against her chest. Her mascara had run, leaving dark trails down her cheeks. They're going to kill her, aren't they? I held up her phone with the unsent FBI email. Like they killed Robert? She sank into the chair, trembling. I didn't know about Robert. Not until after. But Ivy. Her voice cracked. Daddy said it would be peaceful, that she wouldn't feel anything. And you believed him? I believed I didn't have a choice. She looked down at Finn. He owns everything. The house, the company, our future. When the prenatal test showed a boy. She stopped, choking back tears. The monitors tracking Ivy's vitals beeped steadily. Through the window, I saw Maxwell talking to hospital security, showing them papers, probably a court order. Your father's coming for both children, I said. Are you going to let him? Delilah's fingers tightened around Finn. He'll destroy us if I don't. He's already destroying you. I moved closer to Ivy's bed. Look at your daughter, Delilah. Really look at her. Ivy stirred, her small hand reaching out. Mommy. Something broke in Delilah's expression. She stood, about to step forward, when the door burst open. Maxwell entered, flanked by security and a woman in a suit. Child Protective Services, the woman announced. We have an emergency custody order for both children. Maxwell's smile was razor-sharp. It's over, Viola. The judge agreed you're unstable, a danger to these children.
No.
Delilah clutched Finn tighter. Daddy, you promise. Quiet, dear. His tone could freeze hell. The orderlies will help you hand over the baby. Officer Chen appeared in the doorway, but Maxwell held up a restraining order. The police have no jurisdiction here. This is a family court matter. I watched helplessly as security approached Ivy's bed. All our evidence, all our plans, none of it mattered against Maxwell's power and money. Then Ivy spoke, her voice surprisingly clear. Mommy, tell them about the special book. Maxwell froze. Delilah's eyes widened. The one under Daddy's desk, Ivy continued, with all the numbers and names. I saw the flash of fear cross Maxwell's face. The notebook, not just evidence of their plan for Ivy, but apparently something much bigger. Delilah, Maxwell warned, remember what's at stake. She looked at Ivy, then at Finn, then at her father. Years of manipulation and control played across her face. Mrs. Monroe, the CPS worker, stepped forward. Please hand over the baby. Delilah stood, walking toward her father. For a moment, I thought she'd surrendered. Then she turned to Officer Chen. I want to make a statement, she said, her voice shaking but firm. About Robert Everhart's murder. About the notebook. About everything. Maxwell lunged for her, but security grabbed him instead of us. In the chaos, I saw his mask finally crack, revealing the monster beneath. You ungrateful little. He stopped, composing himself.
Fine. Tell them.
But remember, that notebook implicates Jasper too. Are you ready to send your husband to prison? The room fell silent except for the steady beep of Ivy's monitors. Delilah looked at me, tears streaming down her face. I'm sorry, she whispered. And then she handed Finn to Maxwell. The CPS worker moved toward Ivy's bed as Delilah fled the room, her sobs echoing down the hall. Maxwell's triumph was complete. I had failed. Failed Robert, failed Ivy, failed everyone. As they prepared to take my grandchildren, I realized this wasn't about justice anymore. It wasn't even about revenge. It was about survival. And sometimes to survive, you have to be willing to burn everything down. I reached for my phone, my fingers hovering over a number I'd sworn never to call. Robert's brother. The FBI agent we'd cut ties with years ago over a family feud. Sometimes the devil you know is better than the one wearing your father-in-law's face. FBI agent Marcus Everhart arrived as Maxwell was loading Finn into his car. My brother-in-law hadn't aged well, Grief had carved deep lines around his eyes since Robert's funeral. That's far enough, Monroe. Marcus's badge glinted in the hospital parking lot lights. We have a warrant for those financial records your granddaughter mentioned. Maxwell's smile didn't waver. Agent Everhart, still bitter about losing the family fortune to your younger brother. Actually, Marcus pulled out his phone. I'm bitter about this. He played an audio file, Jasper's voice trembling. Dad found the offshore accounts. Maxwell said he'd handle it. The baby carrier slipped from Maxwell's grip. Officer Chen caught it before it hit the ground, whisking Finn to safety. Where did you get that? Maxwell's composure cracked. From me. Jasper emerged from the shadows, looking older than his years. I recorded everything after Dad died. I just couldn't face what I'd done. I stepped forward. You knew? All this time. I thought I could protect them another way. Jasper wouldn't meet my eyes. Keep playing along until I had enough evidence. But when Delilah suggested the insurance plan for Ivy, you let them try to murder your daughter. I didn't know they'd actually do it. His voice broke. I thought if I stalled long enough, but then I heard Ivy crying in the coffin. Maxwell lunged for his car, but Marcus was faster. As they grappled, something fell from Maxwell's jacket, a syringe, identical to the one that had poisoned Ivy. Evidence, Officer Chen said, bagging it. Plus the notebook your wife just delivered to the station, Mr. Everhart. Quite detailed about both the murder and the financial fraud. Delilah appeared in the hospital doorway, holding Ivy's hand. Our eyes met across the parking lot. No words needed. She'd chosen her children over her father's empire. You ungrateful parasites, Maxwell spat as Marcus cuffed him. I gave you everything. No. Jasper's voice was quiet. You took everything. My father, my daughter, my soul. He turned to me. Mom, I know I don't deserve forgiveness. You're right. I watched Chen load Maxwell into a patrol car. You don't, Grammy? Ivy's small voice cut through the tension. Can we go home now? Home. Not the mansion Maxwell had bought them. Not the perfect facade they'd maintained. Home was my small house by the lake, where Robert and I had raised Jasper, where Ivy had learned to walk. Your father has some explaining to do first, Marcus said, his tone professional despite everything. About Robert's murder, the company fraud, all of it. Jasper nodded, broken but somehow lighter. I'll tell you everything. And then, Delilah asked, still holding Ivy's hand. Then we rebuild, I said, taking Finn from Chen. Not the lies or the pretense. Something real. As police lights painted the night red and blue, I held my grandson close, watching my son being led away in handcuffs. Justice had come at a terrible price, one generation's sins cascading into the next. Mom, Jasper called back. The night Dad died.
He said something.
He said you were right about Maxwell all along. That's why he was coming to tell you about the accounts. The last piece clicked into place. Robert had been driving to my house that night, choosing truth over money, family over facade. Like father, like son, just too late to prevent the damage. Ivy tugged my sleeve. Grammy, I'm tired. Me too, sweetheart. I gathered my grandchildren close, feeling the weight of victory and loss. Let's go home. Behind us, Maxwell's empire crumbled into handcuffs and evidence bags, while ahead, the long road of healing beckoned. 6 months later, I sat on my lakeside porch, watching Ivy teach Finn to blow bubbles. The autumn leaves painted the water gold and crimson, like nature's way of turning the page. The newspaper on my lap carried Maxwell Monroe's sentencing, 25 years for Robert's murder, fraud, and attempted murder of Ivy. His empire had crumbled, taking down corrupt judges and officials with it. Officer Chen had been promoted for her role in the investigation. More bubbles, Grammy. Ivy called, her laughter carrying across the yard. The nightmares had mostly stopped now, though she still slept with her door open. Delilah appeared from inside, carrying coffee. She'd moved into the guest house after selling the mansion, using the money to start a foundation for children of domestic abuse. Jasper's hearing is tomorrow, she said quietly. I nodded. My son had pleaded guilty to lesser charges in exchange for his testimony against Maxwell. The prosecutor had recommended leniency, citing his eventual cooperation and the years of manipulation he'd endured. "Will you go?" Delilah asked. "I don't know." I watched Finn wobble on unsteady legs, reaching for his sister's bubbles. Sometimes forgiveness feels like betrayal. "Mom?" Jasper's voice startled me. He stood at the garden gate, thinner than I remembered, wearing an ankle monitor. Part of his pre-sentencing arrangement. The restraining order I started is still in effect, I know. He stayed outside the gate. I found something in Dad's old files. Something you should have." He placed an envelope on the fence post. Delilah retrieved it, her hands trembling slightly as she passed it to me. Inside was a letter, dated the day Robert died. My husband's familiar handwriting filled the page. "Vi, you were right about Maxwell. About everything. I'm coming home to tell you the truth. To make things right. To save our son from what he's becoming." "He never made it home," Jasper said softly, "because I told Maxwell he was coming." Ivy looked up at her father's voice. For a moment, she seemed torn between running to him and staying with Finn. She chose her brother, wrapping protective arms around him. "I don't expect forgiveness," Jasper continued, "but they deserve to know their father tried to do the right thing, in the end, like you did." The autumn wind stirred Robert's letter. I thought of all the choices that had led us here, the ones made from fear, from love, from desperate need for approval. "Grammy," Ivy called again. "Finn's getting sleepy." "Go," I told Jasper. "The hearing's tomorrow. We'll see." He nodded, understanding the weight of those words. As he turned to leave, Ivy suddenly ran to the gate.
"Daddy."
Her small voice carried years of questions. "Did you love us? Even when you were scared?" Jasper knelt, keeping his distance but meeting her eyes. "Every second. I just forgot how to show it, like Grandpa forgot sometimes."
"No, sweetheart."
Grandpa remembered. That's why he was coming home. I gathered Finn from the grass, feeling Robert's presence in the way the baby gripped my finger, in Ivy's quiet strength, in the painful hope of redemption. "Time for naps," I announced, ending the moment before it could break us all. Later, as my grandchildren slept, I sat with Robert's letter and a photo album. The last picture of our family together showed Jasper holding newborn Ivy, his face full of possibility rather than ambition. Sometimes healing doesn't mean forgetting. Sometimes justice isn't about punishment. And sometimes the hardest part of love is letting it change shape without letting it go completely. I placed Robert's letter in the album. Tomorrow would bring its own choices, its own chances for redemption. For now, the sound of my grandchildren's peaceful breathing was answer enough. The morning fog clings to everything, turning familiar streets into something alien. I've walked this route to the corner store thousands of times, but today feels different. Maybe it's because I'm out earlier than usual, or maybe it's the way my arthritis is acting up, making each step a reminder that I'm not as young as I used to be. A cat darts across my path, disappearing into an alley. Something about its movement catches my eye, too quick, too desperate. Then I hear it, the soft clatter of a trash can lid. "Hello!" I call out, taking a few steps into the alley. "Is someone there?" The sound stops. In the dim light, I make out a small figure crouched behind a dumpster. My first thought is it's just another homeless person, but then I catch a glimpse of tangled blonde hair, and my heart nearly stops. "Lila." My voice comes out as barely more than a whisper. The figure freezes. I know those eyes. I've seen them in countless family photos, in my dreams, in the missing person posters that still hang in shop windows around town. My granddaughter. My Lila, who disappeared 8 months ago. "Sweetheart, is that really you?" She's thinner, so much thinner, and her clothes are filthy. But it's her. I'd know her anywhere. "Gran?" Her voice is rough, like she hasn't used it in a while. I want to run to her, scoop her up in my arms, but something in her posture stops me. She's coiled tight, ready to bolt. Instead, I lower myself carefully to the ground, ignoring the protest in my knees. "I'm right here, baby. I'm not going anywhere." She said you wouldn't want me anymore. The words hit me like a physical blow. Who said that, Lila? She shakes her head violently, shrinking further into herself. I'm not supposed to tell. She'll be mad. My mind races.
She.
Not they.
Not he. She.
You must be hungry, I say, keeping my voice steady despite the rage building inside me. I was just heading to get some breakfast. Would you like to come with me? We could get those chocolate chip pancakes you always loved. I'm not allowed. Her voice breaks. She'll know. Lila, sweetheart, look at me. I wait until those familiar blue eyes meet mine. No one is going to hurt you anymore. I promise. She takes a small step forward, then another. When she's close enough, I can see the bruises on her arms, partially hidden by her long-sleeved shirt. My hands shake as I fight to maintain my composure. Can we? She hesitates, glancing over her shoulder. Can we go to your house instead? Of course we can. I stand slowly, offering my hand. She stares at it for a long moment before taking it, her tiny fingers ice cold against my palm. As we walk the 3 blocks to my house, my mind is already working. I should call Grant, tell him his daughter is alive. I should call the police. But something holds me back. Lila's words echo in my head. She'll be mad. I've known my daughter-in-law Marissa for 12 years. I've never quite trusted her, but I never thought.
No.
I need proof before I make accusations. I need to understand what happened to my granddaughter. For now, I'll get Lila warm and fed. I'll make her feel safe. And then, when she's ready, I'll find out exactly who hurt her. Because whoever did this to her is going to pay. That's not just a promise to Lila. It's a promise to myself. I watch Grant through my kitchen window as he parks his car, fumbling with his keys in a way I haven't seen since he was a teenager. My call had been brief. Come alone. Don't tell Marissa. It's about Lila. That was enough to bring him racing across town at 7 in the morning. Lila's asleep upstairs in my guest room, wrapped in clean blankets, her dirty clothes replaced with an old t-shirt of mine. She'd barely touched the food I offered before exhaustion took over. The back door opens. Mom, Grant's voice cracks. What's going on? I put my finger to my lips, gesturing for him to follow me upstairs. Each creaking floorboard makes me wince. At the guest room door, I pause, watching his face as he peers inside. The color drains from his features. His hand shoots out, gripping the door frame so hard his knuckles turn white. That's not. It can't be. It's her, I whisper. I found her this morning. He takes a stumbling step into the room, then stops. We should call the police. Not yet. I pull him back, closing the door softly. There's something you need to hear first. In the kitchen, Grant paces while I make coffee neither of us will drink. She mentions someone, Grant. A woman who kept her somewhere. He stops moving. What are you saying? Where was Marissa the night Lila disappeared? Don't. His voice is sharp. Don't go there, Mom. When was the last time she attended one of Oliver's school events? Or stayed home for dinner instead of working late? The questions I've been holding back for months spill out. Have you checked her bank accounts lately? She's working hard to provide for us. But there's uncertainty in his eyes now. The real estate market has been booming for the past year, I finish. I may be retired, but I'm not blind. He slumps into a chair. What did Lila say exactly? Before I can answer, a small voice comes from the doorway.
Daddy.
Grant's head snaps up. Lila stands there, drowning in my old t-shirt, her face a mix of hope and fear. Baby girl, he breathes but doesn't move. Smart man, he remembers how she spooked earlier. Lila takes a tentative step forward. Are you mad at me? Mad. Grant's voice breaks. Why would I be mad? Because I ran away from the cold room. She said you'd be angry if I left. Grant's hands clench into fists. What cold room, sweetheart? But Lila's attention has shifted to the window. A car is pulling into the driveway, Marissa's silver BMW. No. Lila bolts from the room. I hear her feet pounding up the stairs. Keep her away, I tell Grant, already moving to follow Lila. I don't care what you have to say, but don't let her in this house. Through the window, I watch Grant intercept Marissa in the driveway. Their voices are muffled, but their body language speaks volumes. Marissa's perfectly manicured hand reaches for Grant's arm. He steps back. She tries to move past him. He blocks her path. Upstairs, I find Lila wedged between the bed and the wall, shaking. She can't get in, I promise, sitting on the floor nearby. Your daddy won't let her. She always gets in, Lila whispers. She has keys to everything. A chill runs down my spine as I remember the spare key I gave Marissa years ago. I never asked for it back. Below, I hear the back door open. The first thing I do after Marissa leaves is call Jasper. My hands shake as I dial, memories of that confrontation still fresh. The way she'd breezed into my kitchen like she owned it, all perfect makeup and practiced smile. The way Lila's screams had torn through the house when she heard Marissa's voice. Evie. Jasper's gruff voice brings me back to the present. It's been a while. I need your help. I glance at Grant, who's sitting at my kitchen table, head in his hands. Remember that favor you owe Thomas? A pause. Your husband made me promise to look after you. What's wrong? I tell him everything. About finding Lila, about the cold room, about Marissa's reaction when she saw Grant blocking the door. She wasn't surprised, I say. She wasn't even confused. She just smiled. Don't do anything yet, Jasper says. I'll be there in 20 minutes. While we wait, I try to coax more information from Lila. She's curled up in the window seat, wrapped in a blanket, watching the street like a sentry. Can you tell me about the cold room, sweetheart? She traces patterns on the window glass. It was in the basement, with the boxes. What kind of boxes? Real estate ones. With papers. She stops drawing. And pictures of other kids. Grant's head snaps up. What kids? The ones who were there before me. She said they were bad, so they had to go away. Lila's voice drops to a whisper. I try to be good. The doorbell rings, making us all jump. Through the peephole, I see Jasper, looking more weathered than the last time I saw him at Thomas's funeral. Jesus, he mutters when he sees Lila. Then, more professionally, hello there, young lady. I'm an old friend of your grandmother's. Lila doesn't respond, but she doesn't hide either. Progress. Jasper settles into an armchair, his detective's eyes taking everything in. Grant, I need you to tell me about your family's finances. What does that have to do with? Everything. Jasper cuts in. Your wife's a real estate agent, right? How's business? She says it's good. Great, actually. We just bought a new car. And the money for that came from? Grant frowns. Her commission from the Riverside development deal. She said. He stops, color draining from his face. What? I demand. The development that fell through. She told me last month it was dead, but we still got the money. He pulls out his phone, fingers flying over the screen.
Here.
The deposit came through 2 days after Lila disappeared. Jasper leans forward. How much? $50,000. A small sound makes us all turn. Lila's pressing herself against the window, breath fogging the glass. She's here again. Through the window, I catch a glimpse of silver. Marissa's BMW, idling at the corner. I need to get into your house, Jasper tells Grant. Today, while she's out. If there are records of other children.
No.
Grant stands abruptly. I'll do it. She's my wife. My responsibility. Daddy. Lila's voice is small. There's a hidden door behind the wine rack. That's where she keeps the important stuff. The silence that follows is deafening. Grant looks like he's aged 10 years in 10 seconds. How do you know about the wine rack? You've never been in our basement. Yes, I have. Lila turns from the window, and for the first time, I see anger in her young face. That's where the cold room is. The BMW's engine revs, then fades as Marissa drives away. But we all keep staring at the empty street, the horror of what Lila's saying sinking in. My granddaughter wasn't just taken. She was hidden right under our noses in her own home. And Marissa? She's not just a kidnapper. She's something much worse. The basement door in Grant and Marissa's house stands open like a mouth ready to swallow us whole. Jasper insisted on coming along, but he's keeping watch upstairs while Grant and I descend into the darkness. Each step feels like a betrayal, not of Marissa, but of myself. I trusted her with my grandchildren. The wine rack's over here, Grant says, his flashlight beam dancing across bottles. His hands shake as he runs them along the edge. I don't see any.
Click.
The rack swings forward, revealing a narrow passage. The air that rushes out is stale, carrying the metallic tang of fear. I'll go first, I say, but Grant's already pushing past me. The hidden room is smaller than I expected, maybe 12 by 12. Metal filing cabinets line one wall. A small cot sits in the corner, its thin blanket neatly folded. On the opposite wall, a cork board displays photographs, dozens of them. Children's faces stare back at us, some smiling, some not. Oh God. Grant stumbles backward. These are from her development projects. The families she helped relocate. I'm already pulling open filing cabinet drawers. Inside, manila folders are labeled with children's names. Some have red X's marked across them. Mom. Grant's voice cracks. Look at this. He's holding a leather-bound notebook. Inside, in Marissa's precise handwriting, are lists of names, dates, and dollar amounts. Next to each entry is a note. Accepted payment. Refused offer. Alternative arrangement required. My phone buzzes. Jasper's warning signal. Footsteps creak overhead. Hide. I hiss, pushing Grant toward the passage. But we're too late. I wondered when you'd find it. Marissa stands in the doorway, Oliver clutching her hand. My youngest grandson looks confused, tired. Oliver, sweetie, go wait upstairs like Mommy told you. Where's Daddy? Now, Oliver. Small feet patter away. Marissa steps into the room, closing the door behind her. The click of the lock is deafening. You don't understand, she says, almost gently. These children needed help. Their families were desperate, drowning in debt, facing eviction. I gave them a choice. A choice. Grant's voice is barely recognizable. You took our daughter. I protected her. Marissa's composure cracks. You think social services would have let us keep the kids once they discovered our financial situation? The gambling debts you thought I didn't know about. Grant flinches. I step between them, my mind racing. Where's Jasper? Why hasn't he burst in? The other children. I say carefully. Where are they? Safe. With families who could afford them. Her smile is almost serene. The system fails these kids. I just redistribute them to homes that can provide better lives. You sell children. The words taste like acid. I save them. She reaches into her pocket, pulls out a phone. And now I have to save Oliver too. The screen shows a video feed. Oliver in the back of a car, someone else at the wheel. My associate will take good care of him until this blows over. Her voice hardens. Unless you'd prefer I call the police? Tell them how you kidnapped Lila. Turn my husband against me. They'll find this room, Grant says. Will they? In an hour, everything here will be gone. Just like it was gone from the other properties. She steps closer. So here's your choice. Walk away now. Forget what you've seen, and Oliver comes home tonight. Or push this, and you'll never see either of my children again. My hand finds the heavy flashlight in my pocket. One swing is all it would take. But Oliver's face fills my mind, scared, alone, with some stranger. Tick-tock, Marissa says softly. What's it going to be? Behind her, the door opens silently. Jasper stands there, his gun trained on Marissa's back. But his slight head shake tells me everything. We don't have proof of Oliver's location. Not yet. Sometimes revenge has to wait. Jasper's living room feels too small for the weight of what we're planning. Maps and documents cover every surface. Property records, bank statements, photographs. Evidence of Marissa's network spreading across 3 states like a cancer. She's meeting someone tonight, Jasper says, tapping a surveillance photo. At the Riverside development site. That's where the money came from, Grant mutters. He hasn't slept in days. None of us have. The deal that wasn't supposed to exist. I study the woman in the photo standing beside Marissa, tall, elegant, with steel gray hair. Who is she? Margaret Whitmore. Jasper's voice is grim. Real estate mogul, philanthropist, and, according to my sources, the mastermind behind this whole operation. They call her the facilitator. My phone vibrates, a text from the neighbor watching Lila. All okay. Still sleeping. We need to move tonight, I say, before they relocate Oliver. Mom, we don't even know if he's there. I point to another photo, barely visible in the stack. A construction site trailer at Riverside, curtains drawn, but a small handprint clearly visible on the window. That's Oliver's height. Grant reaches for his car keys, but Jasper stops him. We do this wrong. We lose everything, including our shot at Whitmore. I don't care about Whitmore. Grant's voice cracks. That's my son. And she's the only one who can bring down the entire operation. I force myself to sound calmer than I feel. If we just get Oliver back, the other children? The words die in my throat as my phone rings. Marissa's name flashes on the screen. Speaker. Jasper mouths, already recording. Hello, Evie. Marissa's voice is honey sweet. I thought you might like to know that Oliver's asking for his grandmother. Isn't that precious? My hands shake. Let me talk to him. Oh, I don't think so. Not until you return what you took from the basement. We didn't. The notebook, Evie. Margaret's quite upset about it. She's starting to question my judgment in handling this situation. A pause. She's suggesting we might need to make an example. Grant lunges for the phone, but Jasper holds him back. You have 1 hour, Marissa continues. Bring the notebook to Riverside. Come alone, or Oliver joins the other redistributed children. And this time, you won't find him. The line goes dead. It's a trap, Jasper says quietly. Of course it is. I'm already moving, gathering what I need. But she doesn't know about the copies we made, or the GPS tracker you put on her car. Mom, no. Grant blocks the door. Let me go. She'll be watching for you. I touch his cheek, remembering the little boy who once needed my protection. Now I have to protect his children. Besides, I'm just a harmless old woman, remember?
Evie.
Jasper's voice stops me at the door. What aren't you telling us? I think of the gun in my purse, the one Thomas left me, the one I promised him I'd never need. Sometimes, I say carefully, the only way to protect someone is to become the very thing they need protection from. Mom, take care of Lila. I meet Grant's eyes. And be ready to move when I call. Outside, the setting sun paints the sky blood red. As I drive toward Riverside, I think about Marissa's words, making an example. Well, two can play that game. Margaret Whitmore wants to meet the opposition. She's about to learn why you don't threaten a grandmother's cubs, even if it means becoming a monster to fight one. The Riverside construction site looms ahead, a skeleton of steel beams against the night sky. I park where they can see me coming. No point pretending this isn't a trap. The notebook weighs heavy in my purse, along with Thomas's gun. A figure emerges from the trailer. Marissa, her designer heels somehow pristine despite the muddy ground. Behind her, Margaret Whitmore stands in the doorway, one hand resting possessively on Oliver's shoulder. Pat her down, Whitmore orders. Her voice matches her appearance, refined, cold, efficient. Marissa's hands are clinical as she searches me, removing both the gun and the notebook. Really, Evie? A weapon. Where are the copies? Whitmore asks. Safe. I keep my eyes on Oliver. He's pale but unharmed, clutching his favorite dinosaur toy. Like the evidence we sent to every news outlet in state. Whitmore's smile doesn't waver. Ah yes, your insurance policy. Clever. But ultimately futile. She gestures to someone behind me. Show her why. A phone screen appears in front of my face. On it, Grant's house is visible, illuminated by security lights. A red dances across Lila's bedroom window. Your choice, Whitmore says softly. Which grandchild lives? The world tilts sideways. You're bluffing. Am I? She pulls out her own phone, dials. Take the shot. Wait. The word tears from my throat. I'll tell you where everything is. Just, please. Mom, Oliver's voice quavers. It's okay, sweetheart. Everything's going to be The gunshot cuts through the night like thunder. For one horrible moment, I think they've killed Lila. Then pain explodes in my shoulder, spinning me to the ground. That was a warning, Whitmore says. The next one won't be. Through the haze of pain, I see Oliver break free, running toward me. Marissa grabs him, but he fights, kicking and screaming. Grandma, let go. She's hurt. Take him inside, Whitmore orders. And get rid of her. Make it look like a robbery gone wrong. Marissa hesitates. Margaret, maybe we should.
Now, dear.
Unless you'd prefer I handle both problems at once. As Marissa drags Oliver away, his screams echo across the construction site. I try to stand, but hands force me back down. Through my good shoulder, I feel the cold press of a gun barrel. Wait, I gasp. You need me. The evidence. We'll die with you. Whitmore kneels beside me, her expensive perfume mixing with the copper smell of blood. You know what your mistake was, Evelyn? Thinking love could triumph over necessity. These children, their investments, assets. The families we place them with understand this. They pay well for the privilege. They're children, I spit, not commodities. Everything has a price. She stands, brushing dirt from her knees. Even justice. The gun presses harder. I close my eyes, thinking of Thomas, of the promise I made to protect our family. I've failed. Failed Lila, failed Oliver, failed. A new sound cuts through the night. Sirens. Multiple sirens, getting closer. Margaret. Marissa's voice carries from the trailer. Police. They're everywhere. Whitmore's composure cracks. How? The toy? I laugh, though it sends fresh pain through my shoulder. Oliver's dinosaur. It has a tracker. And a microphone. Say hello to the FBI, Margaret. Her face contorts with rage. The gun swings toward me. 2 shots ring out. Whitmore crumples, revealing Jasper behind her, his service weapon steady. Sorry I cut it so close, he says, helping me up. Had to make sure we got everything on tape. Through the trailer window, I see Grant hugging Oliver while officers cuff Marissa. More children emerge, led by social workers, the missing ones from Whitmore's operation. But as darkness creeps at the edges of my vision, I realize we're not done. Somewhere in this network, other Whitmores are still operating. Other children are still waiting to be found. And I'm not finished hunting yet. The hospital room feels too small for all the tension it holds. My shoulder throbs beneath fresh bandages as I watch Marissa through the window, handcuffed to her bed, 2 officers stationed outside. She hasn't stopped crying since they brought her in. She's asking to speak with you, Jasper says quietly. Says she'll only tell the whole story to you. Grant stands by the window, his face hard. You don't owe her anything. But I'm already moving. Because I saw something in Marissa's eyes when Whitmore fell. Not relief, not anger, but recognition. Like she was seeing her own ghost. The officers step aside as I enter. Marissa looks smaller somehow, stripped of her designer clothes and perfect makeup. Her wrists are raw where the handcuffs meet skin. I was 13, she says before I can speak, when my father sold me to pay his gambling debts. The words hang in the air between us. I sit, letting silence do its work. Margaret saved me. Her laugh is hollow. That's what I thought then. She placed me with a wealthy family, gave me an education. All I had to do was help her save other children. Like Lila? I never meant. She stops, swallows. Grant was drowning in debt, just like my father. History repeating itself. When Margaret offered a solution, you became the monster that once haunted you. I became a survivor. The words explode from her. You don't understand what it's like, watching everything you love slip away, knowing you're not enough to stop it. No. I lean forward. I watched my husband die of cancer. Watched our savings disappear into medical bills. Watched my son marry a woman who smiled too perfectly and never quite met my eyes. I understand survival, Marissa, but I also understand choice. She flinches. What do you want from me? Names. Locations. Every child you help traffic. Every family involved in Whitmore's network. They'll kill me. Maybe. I stand, my shoulders screaming. Or maybe you can save yourself this time. Really save yourself, not just survive. Her hands shake as she reaches for the water glass. There's a flash drive, hidden in the base of Oliver's dinosaur toy. Everything's there: accounts, contacts, properties. Even Margaret's superiors. Superiors? She was just middle management. Marissa's voice drops. The real power. They're people you see in the news, on campaign posters. Their reach is everywhere. My phone buzzes, a text from Grant. Lila's asking for you. Why tell me this now? Marissa looks up, and for the first time, I see the scared 13-year-old she once was. Because when Margaret died, I saw myself, what I'd become. And I saw Lila in that cold room, becoming me. I move to the door, then pause. The children you helped place, were they all like you? From desperate families?
No.
Her voice cracks. Some were just convenient, profitable. The rage I've been controlling threatens to burst free. But then I think of Lila, of Oliver, of the healing they'll need. I'll make sure Grant brings the kids to visit. I say finally. In prison. They deserve to understand why their mother made the choices she did. And you deserve a chance to become someone they can forgive. Why would you do that? Because revenge ends today. Tomorrow is about healing. I meet her eyes. And because sometimes the best way to save yourself is to save someone else. As I leave, I hear her start to sob, real tears this time, not the perfect ones she used to cry. Outside, my family waits. Grant, Oliver, Lila, even Jasper. They're broken, scarred, but alive. And sometimes, that's enough to start rebuilding. 6 months later, I sit on my back porch, watching Lila and Oliver chase fireflies in the twilight. They're different children now, still healing but laughing more. The nightmares come less frequently. The envelope in my hands feels heavy. Inside is a letter from Marissa, her first since the sentencing. She's been cooperating with the FBI, helping dismantle Whitmore's network piece by piece. 3 senators have resigned. 2 judges. A police chief. Ice cream. Grant calls from the kitchen. The children rush inside, screen door banging behind them. He's different too, grayer at the temples, but lighter somehow. Like setting down a weight he didn't know he was carrying. You haven't opened it, Jasper says, settling into the chair beside me. He still comes by most evenings, claiming it's to check on my shoulder. We both know better. Not yet. I watch a firefly land on the railing. Did you know Thomas kept journals? He mentioned them once or twice. I pull out the worn leather book I found in our old filing cabinet. I found his last entry, written the day before he died. The pages fall open to the familiar passage. He wrote about forgiveness, about how it's not a gift you give someone else, but a choice you make for yourself. Sounds like Thomas. A shriek of laughter from inside makes us both smile. Then Jasper's expression turns serious. The task force found another property yesterday, like the ones in Marissa's files. My hands tighten on the journal. Children?
No.
But evidence. Names. Dates going back 20 years. He pauses. They want you to consult. Your perspective on the case, your connection with the families. I'm retired, remember? Are you? He nods toward the house. Those kids in there? They're alive because you refuse to stay retired. There are other children out there, Evie. Other families being torn apart. Before I can respond, the screen door opens. Lila stands there, ice cream dripping down her cone. Grandma, can we read another chapter tonight? Of course, sweetheart. She beams, then hesitates. Is that from Mom? I look at the unopened letter.
Yes.
Would you like to read it together? She considers this, then shakes her head. Maybe tomorrow. Tonight's for stories. After she disappears inside, Jasper stands. I'll let the task force know you'll think about it. I haven't said yes. You haven't said no either. He tips his hat. Thomas would be proud, you know, of all of this. Later, after stories and tucking in and one last glass of water, I finally open Marissa's letter. It's short, just a few lines. I dreamed of Lila last night. Not in the cold room, but in your garden, chasing fireflies. I hope that's real, not just my imagination. I hope she's healing. I hope someday she'll understand that I'm trying to heal too. The investigators are coming tomorrow. I'm going to tell them everything. Not for redemption. I don't deserve that yet. But because you showed me that saving yourself means saving others, even if you have to do it from behind bars. I fold the letter, tuck it into Thomas's journal. Outside, the fireflies are still dancing, their light like tiny beacons in the darkness. From upstairs comes the soft sound of children breathing, safe in their dreams. Tomorrow I'll call Jasper. We'll talk about the task force, about other children who need finding, about justice that doesn't end with revenge. But tonight, I'll sit here a little longer, watching the fireflies, remembering how light can pierce even the deepest darkness if you're brave enough to keep looking for it. And sometimes, that's the greatest revenge of all.